What is happening out there, Rotoscouts baseball fans? Good to see everybody. Wednesday afternoon show. Hopefully your day's going well. Happy hump day. Hopefully you're getting through the work week. Always a tough one Wednesday. You get to the end of Wednesday, though, as we've always said, you're most of the way through the week. Thursday doesn't mean all that much. You punch out for happy hour early on a Thursday. Friday, basically the weekend already. All here for the 4-day work week, which basically then becomes like a 2-day work week. You know how it is. Most people out there doing 15, 20 minutes of actual work, as they say in office space. But hopefully it's all gone well for you. Big afternoon slate was going on today. If you were at the site early, you had bonus content projections up for that slate. Hopefully it did well with them. It was split across two, as usual, on FanDuel. DraftKings decided to go the sane route and put all 6 games into one slate. They had a pretty decent price when they went like the $25K afternoon, $50K night setup, but not a bad slate through the afternoon. Had some World Cup on earlier. Anybody following the World Cup out there? I imagine some of you are, at least. Pretty wild comeback by England. I flipped to it once, once I got the update that Congo was ahead in the second half. Democratic Republic of the Congo, I believe it is the correct country name. But gave England a run for their money. They needed 2 big goals to come back. Kudos to them for getting it done. They move on to play Mexico in what should be a pretty fun one next round. United States plays Bosnia-Herzegovina later on tonight, I believe. It's a good one tomorrow. Brazil-Norway ought to be a lot of fun, just with those 2 fan bases colliding. Should be fun. But anyway, we're not here to talk soccer, football as they call it. You can see that gigantic run board. We're only dealing with the ones highlighted in yellow on this show. The other ones are ongoing right now. So really, we're paying attention to that chunk. Let me actually take these out of the mix so that we get a little bit better of a view into those. And we're dealing with some very high totals. There were some very high 5+ implied totals on that early slate as well. Just basically warm in a lot of areas of the country. Some significant hitters parks in play. Shaky pitching involved in some of those situations in the hitter-friendly parks. So everything working in favor of bats on this one. Very different slate, though, from FanDuel to DraftKings, because FanDuel includes this Pirates-Phillies game, and that's Paul Skeens, and that's Zach Wheeler. So monster difference from site to site. You can see those are our top 2 projected pitchers with a bullet. And then we're talking about Shane O'Mac, Max Meyer against the Rockies, but at Coors Field at a premium price. Shane Drowan, I think, is a really interesting, legitimate option at an SP2 price that you could probably get away with pairing him with, though, say, Imai at 73 on a slate like this on DraftKings. Just wildly, wildly different without these 2 starters on that DK slate. There's your DK projections, though. I mean, both guys look pretty terrific on either side of that game to start things off. An 8-run game. Skeens hasn't been peak Skeens, but we're still talking about a pitcher with almost exactly a 3.0 ERA, a 3 supporting xFIP and Sierra. It's not like he's bad. He's just not the low 2s ERA guy that we saw dominate the league in his first 2 seasons. He's a little bit more human this year, a little bit gettable. It is a dangerous Phillies lineup. I wouldn't call you nuts for rolling some, contrarian Phillies bats against Skeens. They are pulling a 4.36 implied total. There's a little bit of power showing on Kyle Schwarber. I don't think he's even at the magic number, though. We'll take a look in a minute. I think it was 8 something, if memory serves. So not a great spot to take the Phillies, but that is a 4+ implied total despite Skeens being on the mound. So it's somewhat noteworthy. 3.73 implied going back the other way for Pittsburgh. Just, some conditions pushing bats a little bit on either side of that one. Because Zach Wheeler against those Pirates, I would say normally you'd be quarter run, half run lighter than that. And probably the same thing for Skeens against those Phillies. So you're getting a little bit of conditions bumped there. I assume it's basically like it is here in the New Jersey area. Up by New York City, it's 94 degrees, hot, humid, just summer, July 1st kind of a day. We pick up the DraftKings slate with the Cards and the Braves. Mid-4s implied on the Cardinals side. Excuse me one sec. Mid-4s implied on the Cardinal side, going up against Ronaldo Lopez. Lopez not really stretched out. We're probably getting four and change. Maybe he gets through 5 if all goes great, but seems unlikely that all is going to go great. Wouldn't mind some Cardinals bats against, especially if they go off at a little bit lighter ownership, given all the slightly higher mid-4s totals and then totals rocketing into the 5s and 6s going beyond them. So they might be a team you could get through a little bit sneaky. I was saying that about the Braves yesterday. I think that's probably exactly the same thing with the Braves today, where that 481 implied total is great, but it doesn't exactly stand out when you've got 493 in play on one side, of course, and a 6+ on the other side. 486 over here, 625, 5+, 5+, 5+, 5.5. There's just a lot in the way of that Braves game drawing any natural popularity on FanDuel yesterday. I only threw one lineup in, but it had Braves in it, and they didn't exactly go off, but everybody came up mid-single digits ownership-wise, and it was a good-looking spot today. They get Michael McGreevy, and it looks good again. I would absolutely consider some Braves bats there. We'll talk about him in more depth when we get to that game. Shane McClanahan, your top projected pitcher on the DraftKings slate, not overly comfortable. Royals drawing a 5+ against. I actually just pushed some more power into this game in the home run model, so you'll see that is up in the power index, the top stacks board, which we'll pull up in a minute. You'll see a little bit more power on either side of that game than was showing earlier in the day. It's just significant mid-teens mile-an-hour wind blowing out to left field on a super warm day in the Kansas City area. 10.5 run game, 5-6 on the Rays side, 5+ on the Royals side. Seems like a day for bats on either end of that one. McClanahan did go 6 in his most recent start, which is noteworthy for him because he had that long stretch of just going 5, almost exactly 5 innings, then struggled through 4, then had a short 3 2/3 where he struck out 3 but walked 5, gave up 2 earned runs on 3 hits and was out of the game. Last time out against these Royals, went 6, gave up 6 runs, but only 2 of them earned on 6 hits. 4 strikeouts, a walk, gave up 3 home runs, though. So one of those batters came up after what should have been an inning-ending error, is my interpretation of how you get 2 earned runs against 3 home runs. One of those guys shouldn't have come up. So it was an unearned run despite being a homer off of him. Just had to think that through for a second. Every now and then you run into those scoring oddities. So, reasonable to see him go through 6 innings there, but obviously some defense got in the way, hurt him. But looking at the, just under the covers numbers for that one game, a 3.0 ERA for the game, but spikes actually a 4.52 xFIP, obviously even worse if you're talking about xERA and so forth. So some of it probably should be pointing toward him as being at fault a little bit in that one. So it's a few bumpy starts in a row. Start before that was a 5-inning start where he gave up 4 earned runs, had the problematic 4-inning start. So it's been a little bit bumpy. I don't know for sure that we're getting back out to 6 innings, especially if that Royals team does their thing, sees a lot of pitches. They haven't been great. The Rays have been a better run creation engine, but we've talked about how short that Rays lineup can get on the wrong night. So more interested in bats on either side of it. Shane McClanahan in consideration, though, given how he projects on a short DraftKings slate. Seth Lugo going back the other way, seeming like more of a target. He's struggling his way to a 4.18 ERA, a 4.52 xFIP under the surface, makes him look even worse. Going to the Reds game, we have Andrew Abbott, or the Brewers game, rather. Andrew Abbott going for the Reds, looking like a big-time target for Brewers bats at a 5.05 implied total. Very interested in some Milwaukee upside. Home run pick of the day coming from the Milwaukee Brewers. Shane Drohan, as mentioned, looking really interesting for the Brewers, going back the other direction. Checking the Reds down all the way to a 4.06 implied total. Not exactly popping off the board. There are obviously some usable bats in there. Drohan, a lefty, may be vulnerable to some of the right-handed power that's in the Reds lineup, but he's been pretty good. 3.12 ERA, a 3.73 xFIP. Hasn't really missed a beat in this move to the starting rotation, finding some strikeouts. Hasn't pitched particularly deep in most of the outings. Did go 6 1/3 in his second full start, and that was at Coors Field in an impressive outing. Gave up 3 earned runs on 5 hits, struck out 4 and walked 1, but the 6 1/3 at Coors Field is dynamite. After that one, 5 innings against Philly, 5 innings against Cleveland, 4 1/3 against this Cincinnati team in their ballpark last week. A lot of back and forth, home and home situations going on these last 10 days. So he just handled this team, but not a particularly great DFS start. 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, 5 hits, no runs over the 4 1/3, but obviously didn't qualify for the win. No quality start. You take what you get as far as the pitch count goes. He's nice and cheap, though. So at worst, you're talking about a good SP2 option on DraftKings and legitimate consideration as an SP1 on the way that slate is shaped. Taj Bradley for the Twins going up against Tatsuya Imai. Both guys on the board. Bradley pitching fairly well for this season. 4.58 implied total, or 4.55 rather implied total for the Astros should speak for itself. That's a very usable offense with some key bats. Jordan Alvarez pulling one of the top overall home run marks, if not the top overall home run mark on this entire slate. So definitely some consideration there. But Bradley last time out, granted it was against the Rockies, but only 2 earned runs, had a nice 7 strikeout day. 2 starts prior to that, faced St. Louis, a little bit better squad, gave up 4 earned runs, but struck out 7 again that time out. Just a couple homers on the board, but went 6 2/3. Wasn't a bad outing by any stretch. Had a couple bumpy ones, shorter starts where there were a few runs scored, and then that was 4 starts or so through the middle part of June. Before that, was pitching almost ideal, the starts throughout, except for one outing on April 24th. Give up 6 earned runs, coughed up 4 homers in just a weird one. But otherwise was very, very good to start the year. So I think at worst, usable Taj Bradley, especially again, going back to that DK slate, just a little bit short on options. And then Imai, 5.36 ERA, but a much, much more interesting 3.70 xFIP under the surface. 58 strikeouts in 47 innings, including 10 last time out, 11 the start before that in 6 innings apiece. One was against Cleveland, one was against Detroit. I would call Minnesota a fairly comparable opponent here. So Imai, very much on the board for quality. I think Max Meyer, given how he projects at Coors Field, given how good he's been throughout the season, is really interesting, despite pitching at Coors in an 11-run game. His opponent, sub 5 runs, 4.94, closing in on 5, obviously, less than ideal. But Max has earned a little bit of faith. He's been very good. He's been pitching deep into ball games for most of his outings, especially recently. So I think he's worthwhile, and that's a very gettable Rockies team on the right day. Going the other direction, I think we're targeting Kyle Freeland. The Marlins rank at the top of the stacks board again, 6.19 implied total. They've also just been one of the best teams in baseball for the month of, or they were for the month of June. We're into a new month now. We'll see how they hold up. I continue to think that offense in many ways is overperforming through some of those guys, but there are good players on that team now. There are interesting bats, and they're at Coors Field with a massive total. They're going to be popular again, as we've talked about over the last couple days. Trevor McDonald, another interesting starter, keeps the ball on the ground, keeps the ball in the yard. 4 home runs allowed over 51 innings, 10 starts on the season now. He's been decent. 4.94 ERA, but a 4.02 xFIP. Just 45 strikeouts in his 51 innings. We'll talk about the percentages, the real numbers. But where he is interesting is the potential to pitch deep into a ball game. Hasn't done particularly well in that regard in a handful of recent starts, but did get out to 5 1/3 in the most recent one against Atlanta. 3 earned runs, struck out just 3, walked 1, but a fairly clean game, 7 base hits. Not terrible, and nice to see him pitch into a 6th inning again. So you get a little depth, and you do get that ability to potentially check power a little bit, but you're seeing plenty of run upside. 5.04 on the Diamondback side. Zach Gallen been a target for most of the year, 6.15 ERA and not much better, 4.92 xFIP. Definitely looking like a pitcher you can throw some Giants bats against. But you'll see Zach Gallen break out the old form a little bit from time to time. A few starts back, just 3 earned runs, only struck out 4 of the 3 earned runs, came on 2 homers, 6 hits overall. It went 6 in that game. It was at Cincinnati. Yeah, it's one of the few okay examples. Had a 6-inning 2-run game back in mid-May. Struck out 5 against the Giants, but has allowed at least 1 home run in many starts, and most of his recent starts. Has allowed multiple home runs in 5 of his 17 starts on the year, 15 on the season. He's just been really, really gettable. So I think Giants bats very much in play, and they're an improving lineup. Then we round things out again in that launching pad in Sacramento, 6.25 implied on the Dodgers side, 4.86 coming back the other direction for the Athletics. At last check, it was Charlie Barnes for the Dodgers. Need to make sure that holds up. That was some speculation. Oddity also to call out for DFS purposes for the Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani listed as a starter today, a pitcher today on both sites. Still TBD on MLB as far as who that starter is going to be tonight, but I had it as this guy. Oops. Charlie Barnes. I only have him in for limited innings, and it's not a good situation. I think I settled on 4. 5,500, 4,000. Just against that upside Athletics team. Just doesn't look like a great spot. So, seems like a stretch there. Pretty big stretch there at the bottom of the board. You're dealing with a pretty short list of options, but you do have some good prices on some of those mid-range pitchers like Imai is really interesting at 73. And like I said, pairing Drohan and Imai is not a bad option. We'll get into that in just a sec, but let me pull up the stacks board. Say hi to some people as well. Cujo's here, Meech, Andy. I just kind of dove in. Feel like I've just been ranting at you. Cubs calls dibs on winning. Sorry, guys. Somebody go catch him. He's been doing a lot of winning. He took down. He was one of the people that put a screenshot. Would you win? You took down a $2,000 one of the side FanDuel contests, right? First place, I think, just recently. Pretty sure that was you. There were a couple winners though in Discord just recently. Jump into the Discord. It's linked in the description of this video below. Also, as you're scrolling down there, you'll see free weeklies still just rocking and rolling. Anytime free first week on a weekly plan to check it out behind the scenes. Use the MLB projections for a week. See how you like them. See how you do. No guarantees you're immediately going to win first day out of the gate with them, but we do have a lot of success around here, and I think there's a lot of belief in the numbers as they go. You can see a lot of them as we talk through them on the show. This is today's stacks board right in front of you here. You see the Philly and Pittsburgh lineups just kind of buried down in the middle of the board on FanDuel, 12th, 14th. They're actually tied in that position and not available on DraftKings anyway. They're just going up against Paul Skeens and Zach Wheeler. That's a much bigger hit to the DraftKings slate on the mound than it is at the plate. Kind of less relevant teams. But, Philly, given that 4-something implied total, maybe you take a contrarian stance with a couple of your lineups if you're building a bunch on FanDuel. The Phillies, good enough to have a bit of belief, especially around Schwarber, Harper, and so forth, that you can get there a little. What happened to Landon and Roop last night? Dang it. Yeah, that slate went a little sideways. What did Roop end up giving up last night? 2 2/3, 6 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, 6 walks. Yeah, that's problematic. I mean, D-backs are a pretty capable squad at drawing walks. Something just going on with him, though. Fott actually pitched okay. 3 hits, 1 earned run, just 2 strikeouts. Was out after 5 1/3, but not bad. Yeah, walked Perdomo twice, Carroll once, Gabby Moreno twice. Or, I mean, those guys had that many walks in that start, and since he walked 6 guys in his 2 2/3, presumably it was each of them a couple times over. So that's those guys doing their thing and just kind of frustrating a young pitcher. You could see it how it happened. But yeah, really uncharacteristic start for Landon Roop. Usually quite a bit better than that. Bad outing, but one of several spots that went sideways last night. Cubs says 6 walks. Sounds like my daughter's softball game. Yeah, Chaparro hit his home run today, not yesterday. That's all right. As I've said many a time, if you're going to the next day's slate and a guy's in a good-looking spot again, and he was the home run pick the day before, all the more reason. Take him that day. That is such a hot play. Comes up all the time. Meanwhile, Djokovic about to close out the second set at Wimbledon. That's what's on in the corner over here. So again, the stacks board is on the screen here. I was talking about the free weeklies. Those are going on. Promo code was try me. All one word, capital T, capital M. You get access to things like the stacks board. There's also the home run picks contest going on, which I still owe you guys updated totals. Andy got his correct yesterday, so he's on the board. Congratulations. We'll get that updated, I promise, for tomorrow's show. I just, full disclosure, completely forgot to do it. Usually I'm like, I got to get to that, and just run out of time before the show starts. Today, I literally didn't think of it until just as the show was starting. So apologies for that, but we'll get it updated. Congrats to anybody who's gotten one right. If we have a winner, that'll get announced. And if anybody wins before I announce who has won, if somebody has, you'll also win. Don't worry. I'm not taking prizes away from anybody. Meanwhile, so getting into the stacks board, again, the Marlins up the top of the board, not common up there, but they've been playing good baseball. They're a frisky enough DFS team. 6+ implied total against Freeland at Coors Field. All signs point to yes, Marlins, but they're going to be popular again, especially FanDuel. Third by value, that doesn't exactly jibe with that spot. Third by value on DK as well. I was looking at the home run ranking. They don't pop fully for home runs. Coors, a big ballpark that does play well for home run power in most ways. But the Marlins don't exactly break slates for their home run upside in general. So the guys who should be getting it are getting the Coors Field push, but it's not inappropriate. So they fall about 10th on the board here, which makes some sense. But that doesn't diminish the opportunity for them to put together a ton of runs in this spot again. The Dodgers going up against JT Ginn, who by and large has pitched well this season. He's not particularly looking interesting today. He's pushing a lot of power in the direction of the Dodgers. They do fall to 11th by value, standing up a lot better for value on the FanDuel board. That is a super usable Dodgers team, but second to the Marlins and closer to some of the other teams around them than maybe on some other slates, given that JT Ginn, again, has mostly pitched well this season. KC coming in first for value on both sides, I think is kind of interesting. They're pulling 6th overall by home run. McClanahan, again, is good, but that KC lineup is better than it's been. They've got some interesting power bats. They've got some upside showing. So I'm kind of interested in them, and my hope is maybe they fall a little bit by the wayside as well as people flock to the Dodgers, the Coors game, maybe the Brewers, and hopefully, like the Rays. Both the Brewers and the Rays do look good against Seth Lugo, Andrew Abbott. And as mentioned before with KC, we get a little bit of a power bump in that game just from the conditions. So I like the idea of the KC side of that one a little bit more than the more obvious Rays against the lower end Seth Lugo. The Brewers just lose a little bit in terms of points per dollar value because everybody's expensive, but it does look like a great spot to attack Andrew Abbott, 4th by Vegas total. The home run pick of the day comes from that team. There are some big-time home run options in that lineup, despite the 9th overall. Doesn't mean you can't look to that team for a little bit of power upside against that lefty. Arizona, you can see what McDonald's ability to keep the ball in the yard does to their home run upside, but again, they are good for sequencing. They can work some walks. They can exploit a pitcher like McDonald who's got a similar profile to what Roop does out there, and Arizona's checking in for decent value as well. They come up 5th by Vegas total, and then we start falling off a little bit, but I do continue to think that the Braves are not uninteresting against McGreevy, especially going 5th by home run upside, and you can see where Houston stands out a little bit, 2nd by home run, and not bad by value on DraftKings either against Taj Bradley. But again, Taj has been pretty decent. San Francisco pokes their head up for value. Cincinnati pokes their head up for a little bit of home run upside. Again, that righty power does show a little bit against Stroman, but he's been good. And then just limited options against the better starters. The one oddball maybe is the low board ranking for St. Louis against the gettable enough Ronaldo for only a few innings. That one in my head could be a little bit higher, but it's not just bouncing off the model all that well for St. Louis. But I think it's a really interesting board. Should be a fun one to talk through. Again, the biggest point I think across slates is just that those two guys aren't available on DraftKings. Those are your top two options with a bullet on FanDuel. McClanahan, despite the conditions, at 8,000, you're getting a nice little offset there for how talented he is, facing a Royals lineup that hasn't exactly been good, but they're pulling that strong Vegas total. The conditions, again, monster wind blown out to left field on a 90-something degree day in Kansas City just doesn't look great. $8,500 on the DraftKings slate, very much again in play at that price, but he's now one of the pricey, or the second most pricey option on what is a short DraftKings slate, and he's pitching in poor conditions. Max Meyer is the most expensive guy, and he's pitching in worse conditions though. So you kind of just have to take what you're given here. Meyer is good. He has been pitching very well, finding strikeout this year. There's plenty of strikeout in that Colorado lineup, but there's a little bit of power danger against Coors Field, 5+ implied total, et cetera, et cetera. Drouin stands out at price. Taj at 88, at 83, going to be a big part of the slate, even against a quality Houston lineup, even for a pitcher that still don't know if I fully trust. The bad games have been pretty bad. But overall, we're getting mostly good plus side Taj. 88, not offensive. 83, it looks high in the conditional formatting. But on a normal slate, that'd be a nice mid-range option. Lugo's really challenged by that Rays offense in those conditions. Imai, again, super interesting. If we find that strikeout upside again, and he's not getting full credit for those starts yet in the projections, doesn't immediately kick him into, ace status. But there could be a little bit more meat on the bone there with some strikeout available in that Twins lineup. 9,000 on FanDuel, very playable. 7,300 on DraftKings is an absolute bargain. I'm looking more to attack Abbott with bats. He's loosely playable at those prices, but I'd rather have basically everybody we already talked about. Potentially McGreevy, potentially JT Ginn for more, but at significantly lower ownership and a very similar projection. I just don't really believe all that much in Andrew Abbott here, especially against the sequencing team like the Brewers that's also showing power against him. I have a little bit more faith even against the Dodgers, honestly, in JT Ginn. McGreevy kind of split the difference between those two things, but at least he's a little bit cheaper and probably won't be all that popular against the Braves, but you already heard me say I want to get to some Braves bats. McDonald is very playable. You're not going to get a lot of strikeout upside, but the ability to go 6 innings of fairly clean work and keep the ball in the yard for that price, even if he gives up a few runs along the way, you're doing okay there. Ronaldo, I question if you get any depth, even if things go to plan. Zach Allen's been mostly awful all season and looking like a target for San Francisco. Kyle Freeland's pitching at Coors and he's terrible, even against Miami. And we're not entirely sure if Charlie Barnes is pitching, how deep he's going to pitch, or what that's going to look like. But it doesn't seem to be Shohei Ohtani. And I say that because if you weren't here a couple minutes ago, unless things have changed, and I'll check it, Ohtani listed as a pitcher today on both sites. Let's see. Did either of these sites change it? Oh, did DraftKings get it changed? DraftKings got it changed. Good. All right. Let's get that in here. Bear with me one sec, gang. Kind of important. Ohtani is 66, first base and outfield. All right. Gets him there. Let's see if FanDuel did the same. Hang in there. Kind of an important update to make. Not sure why he was in here that way. I'm sure FanDuel probably hadn't got to it. Oh, wait, maybe they did. Or is he just not in here at all anymore? No, still a pitcher on FanDuel. Lame. All right, so what we got to do then is just... All right. I got to clean up that projection after the show. That's going to not be that high. The home run number is not necessarily off or incorrect. It's just very, very high, but basically all these other Dodgers are also pretty high, and it's a good spot. So this isn't crazy. This number is going to come down. I'm not sure if it's drawing part of the pitching projection or what's going on there, but still a pitcher on FanDuel is obviously creating some havoc there with Ohtani, but is available now on DraftKings at 66. I'm going to put him at 0 on FanDuel just to make things a little bit more sane. All right, so know that Ohtani looks great. There you go. Know that he looks great as usual, and is back on the board on DraftKings, which just makes that Dodgers stack look even better. I'm gonna hit the get lineups button. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Let's do it the other way around. You guys hit the lineup button, I'll hit the like button. We should do that from now on. Having a tough day talking, apparently. Phillies lineup's in. Pirates lineup is in. A couple of these are up on the site already. So again, unfortunately, you don't get these guys on DraftKings. If you're playing that showdown slate, there are your projections, no pricing included. But you can obviously take those numbers and run with them. You can always just kind of use the FanDuel numbers directionally in that case as well, if you happen to be playing a slate that does include that game on DK. Skeens looking pretty fantastic on the FanDuel board at 10-4. Slightly more expensive Zach Wheeler against the slightly worse Pittsburgh Pirates, looking maybe like a somewhat better option, 38.55. Now for Wheeler, 35.4 for Paul Skeens, so a little bit of an offset there. So a little bit of upside on the Wheeler end of the board. 2.03 ERA, 3.31 xFIP, 3.44 Sierra. Been mostly tremendous over his 12 starts, his 75 and a third. Skeens in 93 innings, 17 starts, punching out 30.6% of hitters against a 5.4% walk. So pitching tremendous. Again, 25.2 strikeout minus walk. We're looking for 20 before we start calling you an ace. He's pitched to a 3.10 ERA, a 3.02 xFIP, and a 2.90 Sierra. And we're talking about how he's had a bumpier season than usual, how he hasn't been exactly as dominant as maybe in the last 2 years. He's absolutely fantastic. Those are, in a lot of seasons, Cy Young caliber numbers, and he's still in that conversation for this season, halfway through the season. So poised for a dominant second half. No issues with going to Skeens for the money. Slight projection bump on the Zach Wheeler side. 3.73 implied for the Pirates. Does a lot of speaking in that regard. 4.36 implied for the Phillies going the other direction. Again, favorable hitting conditions. But you can see how good Wheeler is at keeping the ball in the yard, inducing weak and medium contact. It's not that Skeens is bad at it by any means. They put up very similar numbers across all of these categories. Not the stuff plus category. Right through there. And through there, the premium contact numbers and the home run numbers. Just a little bit more impact around Kyle Schwarber with an 8.55 in the home run model. But even Bryce Harper, 5.93. Nobody else above even 3.89, which is Trey Turner. On the Pirate side, you get Brandon Lau at 7.13, 5 and change going toward Brian Reynolds, and then nobody else above 5. Neither of these teams overly desirable. Both pitchers fixtures in lineups on the mound on FanDuel. Getting the Pirates bats against Wheeler seems like a not great idea, but they'll definitely be low owned if you're going that direction. Brandon Lau's an absolute priority. 20 home runs on the board, excels against right-handed pitching, even talented right-handed pitching. So you're going to that bat for all the premium contact events. I would say that you're taking Connor Griffin, certainly, out of the shortstop spot in the top spot. 3,200, not a bad price for a kid slashing through 271, 326, 411, a 102 WRC plus. Little bit of concern about the 304 xWOB under the 324 actual. We're 227 plate appearances deep, but stealing bases, the speed and the talent to continue to defy that xWOBA until some of the other things about his game kind of normalize more and he starts getting on base a little bit more reliably, starts finding his base hits, hitting the ball a little bit more squarely with reliability. There are definitely holes right now, but super playable if you're going to this team. Reynolds is a priority in the outfield. 3,800 is a big price to pay for him and Brandon Lau. You're talking about two expensive options to attack Zach Wheeler with. Again, you're paying quite a bit just to be contrarian against one of the best pitchers in baseball. Esmeralyn Valdez has realistic premium contact upside and power. He's hit 6 home runs already in 54 plate appearances in the show. Strikes out a lot, but also drawing some walk. Was doing all of those things at the minor league level and has continued rolling over these 54 chances so far. 34.5% barrel rate is silly in limited batted ball events. 65.5% hard hit rate so far. Ryan O'Hearn's just a good option. A lot of well-struck baseballs, 288, 345, 477. Just rock solid slash line year after year lately from the lefty. Talented guy, 13 home runs on the board. Another guy who would be a priority at 3,300, but another guy expensive. You almost have to take shots with Valdez for 1,000 less. Nick Gonzalez, more just success on batting average on balls in play, mix and match type piece. Jake Mangum, quad A type player with a little bit of speed, 14 stolen bases, solid 340 on base, but a concerning 274 xWOBA under an already bad 309 actual. Tyler Callahan and Henry Davis mix and match pieces across their positions. On the Phil side, you're prioritizing around the stars, around the two big lefties, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper. Kind of no-brainer with the 50 combined home runs. They're pretty good. Trey Turner's been mostly awful throughout the season. 9 home runs, 16 stolen bases. We do have some counting stats, at least to speak of. 57 runs scored ahead of the big bats in that lineup. That's despite only a 286 on base. Imagine if he was getting on base like the Trey Turner of old and with any kind of consistency. There is quality just from the lineup spot. At the price, 2,900, he's not a bad option to pair with the guys for just some correlated scoring upside, and he's still significantly better than he's been despite the near matching WOBA and xWOBA. Brendan Marsh has been getting on base like crazy this year. Really interesting. 14 home runs on the board, hitting for power, connecting regularly, 9.1% barrel, 46.1% hard hit. This is the best version of Brandon Marsh we've seen. Alec Boehm, at worst, a mix and match guy, 9 home runs on the board. We've seen much more consistency out of Boehm, but he puts a ton of balls in play, still carrying a 40+% hard hit rate. That's down several percentage points from his years past and where we would want it. But that's still a very capable guy in terms of just putting the ball in play and trying to find success, which when we're talking about facing Paul Skeens has its value. Just the ability to avoid the strikeout, put the bat on the ball. Same thing's true for Bryson Stott from the left side of the plate, only with a little bit less impact behind it. He does have 7 home runs. He has also stolen 16 bases. He's more of an asset in terms of finding the bonus scoring once he's on base already. JT Realmuto really struggling his way through the season, a mix and match catcher where you don't need catchers. Gabriel Rincones Jr. is kind of interesting for a little bit of power upside, but we're already, considering some other options for power in better spots in the lineup going up the board. I don't feel the need to go all the way down the board for Phillies bats against Paul Skeens. If I'm going to that team, they're already going to be lightly owned among the stars. So no real reason to go to Rincones unless you're building multiple Phillies lineups or you have an emergency need to get really cheap to, say, afford Zach Wheeler along with your Philly stack or something. And Justin Crawford's kind of the same thing. He hasn't been great. He is up to 256, 308, 347, improving that slash line a little bit. A pair of home runs, 10 stolen bases. More interesting than maybe a couple weeks ago, but still not much there. Wheeler, Skeens, very, very close. 1-2 options on the FanDuel slate. Phillies bats over Pirates bats, but neither of the lineups looks particularly great. Again, they are among the bottom teams, 12th by points, 14th by value, both tied, 13th and 15th by home runs, 12th and 16th on the Vegas board. Not a lot going on in that game at the plate. Cards bats, 4.29 implied against Ronaldo. Again, I think that's maybe coming up a little bit shorter than it ought to at the bottom of the stacks board. Just kind of a byproduct of this bottom of this projected lineup with Brian Torres, with Jimmy Crooks not projecting out particularly well, Nathan Church not pulling much of a number, Mason Wynn, right on where he ought to be, but not very good. It is a top-heavy lineup, so maybe it's just a situation where we like the top of the cards, Lars Nootbaar included. I'd say top 5, quite a bit better than those bottom 4, and those bottom 4 are dragging down that number a little bit as far as the stacks board goes. You can see some of that in like the home run difference there. Top 6 is 5.59 versus the 4.48 for the full lineup when you include these lower end options. Not to say that there's not a little bit of upside in a Jimmy Crooks, particularly on DK at 2,100. He has hit the ball fairly squarely in limited opportunities, just hasn't seen any results for it yet. But there's maybe an upside piece there from the left side just because he's so cheap. Probably rather have him than spending more on Mason Wynn, even though he's in a better lineup spot. I'd rather not occupy shortstop that way. Brian Torres does have 3 home runs on the board, a 115 WRC plus, above average, weighted on base marks. It's come on limited hard hits in the tiny sample of batted ball events so far, but he's filling second base pretty cheap. Has been good at avoiding the strikeout in this small sample of plate appearances. But the quality's really up there with St. Louis. And the 4.29 implied total, it's not like that's off the board. There's a lot of slates earlier in the season where we're talking about that number. 4.81 on the other side, I think, is a nice target, though. Again, Braves bats with some power upside going up against McGreevy, who is allowed just kind of mid-board power numbers across the board. Right? 9% barrel, not crazy problematic, but also not by any means low. 10.5 degree average launch. The ball's up in the air, but not crazy, consistently extreme fly ball trajectory, but well struck enough that the occasional ball is definitely going to get into the seats. 40+% hard hits is technically slightly over our line. 89.5 miles an hour of exit velo is a half mile an hour under our emergency threshold, but definitely not nothing. 3.38% home run sounds pretty much exactly in line. Much more of a locator, hitting his spots type guy, low strikeout, soft tosser, 7.5% swinging strike rate, a 3.12 ERA with a 4.07 xFIP, 4.47 Sierra, just on the amount of contact available here. So a relatively low-end starter that you definitely see these Braves taking advantage of. Matt Olson home runs are on the board. Michael Harris home runs on the board. He's in the cleanup spot today. Drake Baldwin up in the leadoff role. Looks like a great catcher option even at 4,800. This looks more expensive in color in the conditional formatting than it is. 4,800, not a terrible price for a catcher slashing 254, 335, 458 in the leadoff spot with some bonus plate appearances against a super gettable righty. 14 home runs already in the bag and 266 chances, a 16.4% barrel rate. That 4,800 is a nice price on Drake Baldwin. And again, maybe they were a little bit more popular on DK. They came up single digits across the board on yesterday's slate. And I like the spot again at a 4.8 implied total. So really interesting bats up, the usual suspects up toward the top of the Braves. And it's a deeper lineup. It's, some of these guys down the bottom struggling. But in many ways, that's a 9-man lineup. Looking at that top end of the cards, though, before we get more into the Braves, Ronaldo, 20% strikeout, a 10+% walk rate, 3.47 ERA on the season, 6 starts, some work in bulk relief, 3.47 ERA, but a 4.66 xFIP, a 4.56 Sierra. He went about a little more than 2 months. 2 months and 5 days between starts, just working a couple innings here, a couple innings there in bulk relief. Came back for a full start. Went 3 innings the other day. That was against San Francisco at San Francisco. 1 earned run, struck out 1. Didn't walk anybody, but it's essentially, relief work. Had a 3-inning bulk relief appearance the outing prior to that one on the 21st. 1 run unearned on 1 hit, 3 strikeouts and a walk. He just is basically this version of Ronaldo Lopez. And he's probably not going more than 4 and change. I don't think you get the chance to qualify for the win, even if his Braves go off. Maybe he barely scrapes his way to 5 innings, and you can qualify for a win on DraftKings, which would put him in a slightly different tier. On FanDuel, 6,200, I don't think there's enough strikeout upside to get you there without the clear shot to even the win bonus, let alone the quality start. Just seems problematic. So anyway, going to the top of the Cardinals lineup, J.J. Weatherholt, definitely a spot to begin. 4,500 at second base for the quality, 12 home runs, 9 stolen bases, getting on at a 358 clip. Kid's been really, really good. Hits the ball squarely, doesn't strike out, draws walks. Everything you could ask for from the leadoff role. That's a good option on DK at 45. 35 on FanDuel works. He's justifiable in the shortstop role if you want to use him there. Depends on who you're combining him with. I tend to get him more at second base. He's a little bit price different site to site. Better bargain over here. Speaking of bargains, my ongoing rant about Ivan Herrera should be just on file by now. He's just one of the best catchers in baseball at the plate, and he costs $4,100 in the 2-spot basically every day. Going back to last year, too, it's not just like this is oddball 370 plate appearances. He was last season 284, 373, 464, hit 19 home runs. He's ahead of that home run pace, getting on base 20 points better. 30 points of batting average lower, but who gives a shit? He's also closing in on as many plate appearances as he made last year because he's playing basically every day now. Kid's just good. 357 weighted on base with a 361 xWOBA. Last year he had a 365 with a 371. 137 WRC plus. This year it's 129. I don't understand why he's so cheap. Where you don't need his position, he's 3,700. That's the correct price. He should be easily 51 on DraftKings. More. Alec Burleson at 41 is a bargain. They haven't noticed his 13 home runs, his 347 on bases, 127 WRC plus, nor have they noticed his 389 xWOBA that says everything he's done, which is just excellence across the board, has been underperforming. 11% barrels, 48.9% hard hits, not striking out barely at all, 14.6%, 8.6% walk. Could be a little bit higher in the walks department and get on base even more, but he's been really, really good this year. First base, 4,100. Don't get it. 34 on FanDuel makes more sense. Even that, you could argue, is a couple $100 too cheap. Jordan Walker, we talked about the little bit of a downturn over the last few weeks. I expect him to fully turn it back on. Everything we saw at the beginning of the year and through the first couple months of the season to get to the numbers he's got right now is extremely real. 5,000, 3,900. Young player. We expect some roller coaster action. He'll get it turned back on in no time. Absolutely going there if we're going cards. He's the priority. Lars Nootbaar is a strong priority as well. 3,500 is nice and cheap. 3,200 on FanDuel, not doing you all that many favors in the price department among the top 5 on that site. You got to choose 4 out of the 5, and you're paying a premium for all of them. But all 5 of those guys are good, and Nootbaar is a part of it. He's been hitting the ball really hard, over 85 chances since coming back. 2 home runs on the board, getting on base at a 400 clip, 381 xWOBA supporting his actual. Just looks like Lars Nootbaar to me, and DraftKings has him at the complete wrong price. That's easily 1,300 short. That's a $4,800 somewhere around there player. Easily. Mason Wynn again, overrated. Brian Torres, mix and match. Jimmy Crooks, Nathan Church, mix and match pieces. Cheap as Jimmy Crooks is, you're just so much better off getting the $2,000 extra to go to the top of the lineup with Ivan. But Crooks is playable down there if that 2,000 offsets buys you the top pitcher or a bat that you really need or whatever. It's fine. As mentioned, Baldwin, absolute priority. If you're considering the Braves, 4,800 looks pretty good. He is arguably as good at his price as Herrera is at the 4,100. There's just Herrera's probably the more complete hitter, but it's very, very close. Baldwin's probably got the higher power, but it's very, very close. I don't mean like higher power. I mean like more in his bat. Ozzy Albies, 42-32. You guys know what I'm going to say. Continue to not fully believe in it, but neither does that price. 4,200 is not really accounting for what he's done so far this season, so no tax. Feel free to go to it. Hit it in second in the lineup. Switch hitter. That's a good spot. Good player over time who can deliver a home run, can deliver some on base and correlated scoring. He is a strong option despite some of the underlying numbers saying otherwise. Matty Olson mashes baseballs, 20 home runs on the season, getting on base like crazy, supporting the team in every which way. 4,900 is great price on DraftKings. 36 is the correct price on FanDuel. No issues with it. Absolute priority among the Braves bats. You're most likely home run contributor from this team at 9.43, but don't sleep on Harris. Drake Baldwin at 8.34. A few spots later, Austin Riley with a little bit of faith attached, 8.75. In between, Harris, who's been crushing the baseball all season long, finding tons of success across the board, and is an absolute priority and is way too cheap at 4,300 for how good he's been all season. 3,200 is also a little bit cheap. From him, Down to Austin Riley, you get Mauricio Dubon and Dom Smith in between. Dubon, more a utility guy, hitting for a little bit of average, contributing. He's got 8 home runs on the board despite a lack of premium contact. He's found the barrel a couple times and gotten lucky. But a contact-oriented hitter who's entirely playable, just not a premium option in the 5 spot. You'd much rather have Austin Riley hitting in that spot, but he's just been so bad that they've just relegated him to 7. Dom Smith, more of a contact-oriented hitter, hit for average, but he can find the long ball from time to time. Cheap lefty to throw into your outfield, first base eligible on FanDuel at a cheap price. But again, Riley remains my priority. 3,500, 2,800. Maybe it's just me trying to get him going because he's such a big part of the dynasty team, which is just falling off and bleeding out and dying on the vine, bleeding out points. Riley has 8 home runs this year. He's been bad for the better part of his last 1,200 or so plate appearances, and I'm not entirely sure why. 9.8% barrel, 43.9% hard hit in a vacuum. Those are still very playable numbers at third base at those prices, and they do justify his 8.75 in the home run model. He just needs to get the engine turned over. That's all I can really say. But the price makes it justifiable at worst if you're going to Braves. What I'm not necessarily looking to do until we see some kind of signs of life is aggressively one-off Austin Riley. I would take him considering how cheap he is. If he landed in a lineup where it's bang, that $2,800 fit perfectly with the pitcher I wanted and everything goes to 0, then sure. But I'm not prioritizing shares of Austin Riley in a one-off sense. I kind of still am if I'm stacking this team. Jastrzemski at 25, 24. Not a bad option considering the history, considering the long balls, a little bit of premium contact upside in the past, at least a 42.9% hard hit rate. So he's putting good wood on the ball, just not completely finding premium angles, finding the launch. 4 home runs on the board, 4.1 degree barrel rate on the season. Little bit of points of concern in the barrel, but there's some offset from the consistency and the player track record at the price. Jorge Mateo at 3,100, 2,600, a nice bargain down toward the bottom. 9 stolen bases, 4 home runs. We talked about the once upon a time prospect pedigree, the multi-category success for fantasy that we've seen over the years and so far this year. Nice 337 XWOB at a 0.2 under that 321 actual that I don't think I mentioned yesterday. Also just making good contact. Small sample of batted ball events so far, but growing. 9.3% barrel, 49% hard hit. Best he's been in years as far as premium contact goes. Playable piece at 31, 2,600 with second base and outfield eligibility makes him even more appealing on FanDuel. That's not a bad wraparound option either. Braves bats, Cards bats. Gun to your head, it's probably McGreevy over Ronaldo just because I don't think you're getting through even 5 with Lopez. Holy shit. Apparently, MLB 2006 is live on ESPNFTV.com. ESPN 8, the Ocho. Is it ESPN-F? Like they've gone through all the numbers and now it's A, B, C, D, E, F. ESPN-F? Or is it ESPNFTV.com because it's a website? Like, fuck TV. Because you're ripping off ESPN and putting it on TV. I'm curious. Talk to me, troll. I need the information about your website. How can I plug you guys? I got to get you all the business. I love the idea that, like, I'm here with however many people are watching now with the numbers that I get, which have been growing nicely, by the way, this year. I appreciate all the additional new viewers, silent though you may be in chat and limited though you may be with your clicks on the like button. I do appreciate every single view that we get, but I love the idea of people coming in here to promote other things. It's like really, this probably won't play well for if I try and sell this to sponsors or anything. I won't show them this part, but like, really, you're coming in here to sell your product to like the handful of people who hang out here. Good luck. I wish you well with your website. I'll leave it there. Go watch MLB 2026 live. ESPNFTV.com. Royals, supported by a little bit of conditions but based upside. 501 implied total against Shane O'Mac. 560 implied for his Rays going back the other direction against a more vulnerable Seth Lugo. McClanahan's been good. He typically lacks depth. As mentioned, did get out to 6+ in an intriguing start the other day. 6 innings, but gave up 6 runs. Only 2 of them earned, 3 home runs, a 4 strikeout day. Wasn't at his best. Some of that his fault, some of it not. But the 6 innings are at least intriguing. That was against this Royals team. If he goes out for 6, I like his chances to have a better day than that. 11.9% swinging strike rate, 23.4% strikeout. A little bit of an issue with walks. Not the best strikeout minus walk rate, but not untenable either. Excellent stuff. Keeps the ball in the yard, keeps the ball to a limited launch angle. 3.30 ERA, but a 3.89 xFIP, 4.04 Sierra, probably ultimately around a 4-run pitcher. Some help in that ERA mark has just been like getting through 5 clean innings and being out of the game and not going through the lineup again, where pitchers tend to give up a little bit more of that third time through the lineup. So a little bit of help for his numbers. That can swing the other way, though. You have a couple bad outings in limited action and your ERA inflates the other way. So it's not necessarily a given that that's because of the shorter starts, but that is what's happening with McClanahan. He's entirely believable that he could succeed here. As you guys know, I don't love over-exaggerating the conditions, but the Vegas total is inflated. The power upside is real and is inflated in this situation. You're talking about a 13-mile-an-hour wind blowing out to left field on a 90-degree day. So conditions are up. And that's just, that's, as I said at the beginning of the show, we've got so many of these big run totals just because look at these temperatures around baseball today. As always, whether via Prop Finder, follow Kevin Roth at Kevin Roth WX. All right, but here's that KC game. 13-mile-an-hour wind blowing out, 90-degree day. But you can see 88, 80s. Those are earlier games. Those are Coors Field and Sutter. 90 degrees through the earlier games on the day. So this is where so many of the 5s and upper 4s totals are coming from. There's just so much heat across the country. And you've got some quality pitching matchups for upside for bats as well. But I don't love pushing that too much. We see it fail all the time, just as much as we see it succeed. It's accounted for in the Vegas totals. It's accounted for through the modeling. As I mentioned, I did push a little bit more power into the game right before the show. You can see Junior's taking advantage of that 15.3 in the model, one of the highest on the entire slate. Johnny Diaz and Jonathan Aranda not far below the magic number in the 8s. Believable upside for power for both those guys, 12 and 13 home runs so far this season, respectively. Both those guys are tremendous at getting on base, regardless of whether they're hitting for power. They're excellent for correlated scoring. They both draw a ton of walks, 416 and 395 on base, hitting ahead of Junior Caminero in the projected Rays lineup. Just a tremendous run creation engine for this Rays team up at the top. When I hit the lineups button, you guys, if you haven't done it already, hit the like button at the bottom of the screen. Scrolling across the bottom of your screen, I just want to see if we got this Rays one yet. Kind of an important lineup to talk about. Scrolling across the bottom of your screen, the promo code TRYME gets you a free first week on a weekly if you want to just jump behind the paywall, check things out, give that a whirl. That'll renew at regular price if not canceled in between. Hopefully you stick around, but it's under $7 overall for the week, the following week, and every subsequent week if you continue on with us. Under $1 a day is the point. Weekly, monthly, and quarterly plans available. That gets you access to anything that hits the website. Right now it's baseball only. That's the only thing really going on. But when football comes back, it's right around the corner. We'll have all kinds of football content rolling. Basketball, hockey, not far away. The New York Knicks took a bump today. Lost Mitchie Robinson to the Celtics. I don't think that one's a great pickup for the Celts. I do like the idea of him and Keta. Strong net ratings on both those players for the full season last year. I just don't think either guy's a full-time starter. I think you're dealing with two guys that are both, solid for 22-ish minutes a night to be at their best, which is fine, playing those two guys in combination and then, throwing 4 minutes to Garza or, Tatum at the 5 or whatever. But I don't know that it's a perfect fit. It's interesting. Cub says games like this Rays Royals seem like a weak point for the Fangraph Sims. As far as how it comes up a little bit light. They do have you can model it a little bit if you want to push more upside into the how it would be impacted by weather. You got to get in there and manually manipulate it though. But they allow you to do that now. Yeah, the default is going to come up a little bit light. Which is, through the automated process that I have, it doesn't manipulate those weather settings. I got to get back in there and see if I can add things to work with those things that they added. But that's not reflected through these numbers anyway. So this is just the pure projections. Excuse me. So again, those top three in this Rays lineup, absolutely spectacular looking. And then we hit this point where the best next man up is probably Seth Mullins in the projected 6th spot. Fair price on him. He's got 8 home runs and 13 stolen bases. Been interesting in spots for fantasy, but he's carrying a 280 WOBA with a 270 xWOBA, 74 WRC plus. He's been really, really bad in most of their games. He's a former 2020 guy. Did he go 30-30 one year? Anyway, major upside in years past for home runs and stolen bases. Good fantasy asset in years past, but those years are more past than they are now. Yeah, 30-30 in 2021. 291, 365, 18 that year was tremendous. Easily his best season. 16 and 34 the following year, 15, 19, 18, 32, 17, 22 just last year. So still, again, a talented fantasy asset. But that's your next best option. Chandler Simpson should be that guy, but he's really struggling, not in terms of the power, but in terms of some run creation upside. Dynamic base stealer, a guy who's out there creating fantasy points on any given slate. He just hasn't been that guy this year. He was very much that guy with 44 stolen bases and 441 opportunities while hitting 295 last year. But not so far this year. He's been really struggling. 268, 309, 320, 19 stolen bases because he's not on enough. Hasn't barreled the ball all season, but power, again, not his game. He didn't barrel the ball all last year. Hard hits, though, down a little bit. Victor Mesa is supposed to be talent there. 71 pretty poor plate appearances outside of those 3 home runs so far. Does have an interesting 340 xWOBA under the surface. Is carrying an 11.1% barrel rate on limited batted ball events, over which he's found no success. But at least those attributes maybe make him interesting. They jibe with the profile a little bit. At 3,100, 2,600, if he's hitting cleanup behind the trio, then sure, that puts him on the board. If he's buried down this direction, less and less. Taylor Walls, nothing more than a mix and match guy that you don't particularly want at shortstop. Second base is barely desirable for him on FanDuel. Doesn't get on base all that much. 323, averages on base, below average weighted on base numbers with below even further down the ladder X numbers. 12 stolen bases, that's the upside. Richie Palacios, mix and match guy. Hunter Fiducia, same thing, just a cheap catcher, mix and match talent. 114 pretty weak plate appearances, 70 WRC plus, 305 xWOBA. It's a lot brighter on the Royals side, even though they're going up against the better pitcher. Just it's a somewhat deeper lineup, even with some struggles. Lane Thomas, really interesting against any given lefty. Talented guy who's been bumping his way through the season. 327 on base is okay. It's not really paying the bills. 217, 327, 339, especially not with the way he's been making contact and paying off very limited power upside so far this year. 304 weighted on base and just a 315 xWOBA under the surface, and 89 WRC plus, lacking for barrels, but that's something he was doing last year as well. Limited hard hits, but up from last year. Just still pale in comparison to 2024, 2023, when he was actually decent. But the price is right. 32, 26, direct correlated scoring with superstar Bobby Witt at shortstop. Helps bring down the high price of Bobby Witt. Pairing those two into Jack Caglianone provides a monster upside for power to pay off the two premium, the leadoff hitter and the premium on base superstar at shortstop. Caglianone's still only 46 on DK, 31 on FanDuel. He's hit 14 homers. We've been talking basically all season about his ridiculous premium contact. 16-6 16.6% barrels, 58.6% hard hit. Those are star caliber numbers. This is a star in the making. 351 weighted on base, 373 xWOBA. More room to grow, 121 WRC plus. Get on board. Starling Marte, just a mix and match outfielder, but good spot in the lineup, hitting cleanup between Cags and Sal Perez, Carter Jensen. That's a playable option, just given where he is in the lineup. He's also found a 13.2% barrel rate over 106 plate appearances. Kind of uncharacteristic, almost doubling his previous seasons. If he continues to do that a little bit, not that there's been any consistency in that department with 36.8% hard hits, but that becomes interesting. Right now, good on base. Hasn't stolen many bases, but that's part of his skill set. Hasn't hit many home runs. He's usually a 12 to 15 home run type guy in a full season. But I'm interested at least in seeing where it goes, and he's holding his own through the slash line. So kind of earning a spot there. Sal has been really struggling, up to 10 home runs at least. Nothing really to write home about through the weighted on base department, but at least the 281 awful xWOBA is 40 points higher than the dead on arrival 249 actual. Carter Jensen has bumped along after a very hot start, but up to 12 home runs. Better slash line than his counterpart. For 1,100 more, though, I just kind of default to Sal. You can have them both on DK, but you can't have them both and Caglianone over there. You can get to all three on FanDuel if you want that configuration. There is plenty of power available in those three players. Carter Jensen at 5.30 could be drawing a little bit more lefty-lefty, knocking him down slightly in the power department. Nick Lofton, Tyler Tolbert, mix and match guys down toward the bottom for fair prices across multiple positions, including third base on DK, second base eligible for both guys on FanDuel. You don't particularly want either guy, but if either one's in there just helping lower a price, round out a stack, it's perfectly fine. And then Michael Massey's a guy I'm a little bit more interested in, just given some ongoing success, finding power here and there, hitting for average in other spots, being low strikeout, and a hitter of some quality who can put the ball in play with consistency. Just gives you a little bit more upside for the cheap price at second base. So I tend to go Massey over Lofton or Tolbert, but it's very close down at the bottom, and you probably get a little bit cheaper and a little bit lower on with the other two. Overall, Rays bats, it's really, again, like yesterday, it's kind of Rays top three, Royals top six, McClanahan, Raise everybody else. Bottom of the Royals lineup, then Lugo. Lugo not terrible, 4.18 ERA, but a 4.51 xFIP, 4.62 Sierra, 18% strikeout, giving up a lot of barrels on a fair fly ball trajectory. Over the line here, over the line there, and there means that is pretty lucky. So that's where this goes up by another half run or so. It wouldn't knock me out of my chair, though, if Lugo had a competent start for 77, 73. I don't think he's entirely off the board, and I think his projection kind of reflects that. I don't want to completely bury him. He is here on the slate. Just that kind of day on the mound. But definitely prefer bats in this one. Weather strongly pushing toward bats. Reds and Brewers. I'm going to hit the lineup button again. See if we got the Brewers in. Another important lineup to me. Andrew Abbott on the bump for the Reds, 7,500, 8,300. I don't think we're really considering him all that hard. He's got a 3.90 ERA, a full run higher in the xFIP Sierra department, 17.9% strikeout, 10.3% walk. As much as I said, Seth Lugo on the board at not that different a price or projection, there's a little bit more buildup with Lugo, I think, going up against a more gettable team. Again, that Rays team is just really about the top, where this Brewers team at their 5-run total, that's a 9-man lineup that I don't really want to tangle with. It's a great run creation lineup. The Rays get a lot of sequencing and run creation, but a lot of it comes from that top end. Again, all those guys basically get on at a 400 clip. That helps. Basically everybody in the Brewers gets on base pretty significantly. So I don't think Abbott is near as good an option on either side as even Seth Lugo is. I'm looking to target him with Brewers bats. Got them in my placeholder right now. Home run pick of the day coming from the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll get to that in a moment, but got that talking point in Shane Drowan. 7,000, 7,600. Pitching well. 3.12 ERA, 3.73 xFIP, 3.68 Sierra. Converted into a full-time starter now. Had some innings in relief. Was pitching like in a swingman role, multi-inning relief. For example, 4 1/3 on the 18th of May against Chicago out of the pen. Faced 16 hitters, struck out 5 of them, no walks, allowed 4 hits, but no runs, was tremendous. Outings like that in relief. Going back to the very beginning of June, converted into a starting role, went 4 innings that day, 2-run ball, struck out 5 against the Giants, all well and good. He had that 6 1/3 inning day at Coors Field, 3 earned runs on 5 hits, struck out 4 against the Rocks, came away with the win, came away with a quality start at Coors, was tremendous for the money that day. 5 innings of 4-run ball was the one downside start that we've really seen. That was against the Phillies on the 13th. You can give him a little bit of a pass for that one. He still struck out 7 and walked 0 in that start. The 4 runs came on 8 hits, including a home run. A little bit of downside there. But given a little offset for strikeout and just where he was priced, it still wasn't a bad day at the ballpark with Shane Drohan in your lineup. It just probably wasn't a winner. You could still easily have cashed with him that day, though. 5 innings of 1-run, 3-hit ball against Cleveland the next start. Only struck out 3, walked 3, gave up a home run. But that's a high-end start. Had an opportunity to come away with a win. Doesn't look like they got it for him. The 4 1/3 in the most recent start is a little bit concerning, but struck out 5, walked 3, allowed 5 hits. So kind of inefficient. Faced 20 hitters. Pitch count got away from him a little bit. That was at Cincinnati, too. Hitter-friendly park. But again, wasn't bad. No earned runs in the 4 1/3. And like the upside in his ballpark against that same Reds team with them coming in at a 4.06 implied, you can ignore this 33.9% strikeout rate. That's not real given that 100% on not sure if that's Ivan Johnson or Ivan Johnson. I'm gonna go Ivan. I'm going to have a lot of Ivans going on right now. Ivan Johnson, not at 100%, but everybody else, for the most part, those are fairly representative strikeout numbers. Edwin Arroyo, I think, is fair at 21%. That's a good rate. That'll help them, not hurt them. 25.7% for the rest of those guys. That is the real strikeout rate. Drohan misses bats, 11.6% swinging strike rate. He's got a deceptively good fastball. He just works at like 95, sits 95, doesn't really peak all that much higher, but has a ridiculous amount of horizontal movement and just misses bats. So don't be surprised if Drohan comes away with a solid strikeout total here. No guarantees. We're not locked into an ace or anything like that yet, but pitching well. And again, 16.1% strikeout minus walk for a young starter, just stretching out pretty good already and room to grow. So I'm interested at 7,000. I'm interested at 7,600. I think there's plenty of upside there. Nice path toward the win there, given how the Brewers look in support of him. Drohan, alongside some of his bats, talking about a nice combination on a slate that is not overly heavy with good options like that. Throwing Reds bats at him, though, they are pulling power against. As you can see, as we saw in the home run model or in the stacks board, they are buried. 14th by points, 12th by points on DraftKings, but they popped a 3rd by home run upside. You could see just the oddball homer that doesn't really damage Drohan if nobody's on. You get Eugenio Suarez, even with his ouchie on his hand, 10.6 in the home run model. It doesn't particularly know he hurt his hand the other day. If he's in the Reds lineup, though, you got to consider him basically fully healthy and ready to rock. So 4,000, 2,700. Struggles so far this season are already priced in. Some missed time, hasn't really gotten the engine turned over, but 8 home runs at least in the limited sample. Hasn't particularly hit the ball consistently like Eugenio Suarez, but we know what the ceiling looks like, and it did look like he was about to get things kicked off before taking that bump over the weekend. So I'm glad he didn't go back to the IL. Elly De La Cruz in the leadoff spot is the team star. 52 is arguably pretty cheap for Elly. 38 on FanDuel. You could easily be several $100 more expensive on either site. 13 homers, 10 steals. The idealized version of Elly De La Cruz right now. Take advantage of the fair price. Sal Stewart, right-handed power for sure. 4,700, 3,600. Cheap. 8.44 in the home run model, coming in with a 14.8% barrel rate, 16 home runs on the board, also getting on at a 342 clip, stealing bags. He's got 11 stolen bases on the year, carrying a 350 WOBA with a 357X supporting it. He has been tremendous and is just good. Spencer Steer's been good, 4,000, 3,000. He's got a 341 xWOBA under his 323 actual. He slipped to a 99 WRC+, but he's hit 13 home runs. He's been making good contact at a 12.9% barrel. Just needs to find a little bit more consistency, which he's done here and there in years past. 39.9% hard hit rate, 2 points higher, 2.5 points higher in 2024 is the apex right now. If he could ever get that over 40%, we'd be talking about a much better player. But at price, positionally in the outfield or at second base on FanDuel, perfectly fine option hitting third in this lineup if you're going Reds. And gains upside against the lefty as well. Tyler Stevenson, a catcher we talk about all the time. Another just too cheap every slate catcher, $2,900. He shouldn't be priced where Ivan Herrera is priced today. He's not a $4,000 plus catcher, but he's not a $2,900 catcher on this scale. 6 home runs in 229 plate appearances this year, carrying an 11.1% barrel, 47.2% hard hits. Last year, he had 13 home runs in 342 chances. That's a catcher just with raw power. That has its own value on DK. So, major upside at price for him if you're going to the Reds. Noelvi Marte, $2,700. Couple homers on the board, 4 home runs, 4 stolen bases. Struggling to find any kinds of consistency at this level, but there's a lot of skill there. Ivan, don't call me Ivan. Ivan, don't call me Ivan. Whatever it is. Johnson, dead mid-price at shortstop. We'll mix and match our way there. Matty McClain struggles. Another player struggles for consistency. 198, 302, 342, but 8 homers, 11 steals. Interesting fantasy days. Second base eligible, 32, 27. Playable piece. And Arroyo not coming in quite as advertised, but 265, 320, 309. Also not bad. Just not finding the counting stats yet. Maybe it's a lack of confidence at this level. He's not stealing bases. He's not hitting home runs. Just out there getting on here and there, finding slap hits here and there, 20.4% hard hit rate, no barrels so far. Not nearly what he was doing at the minor league level, but also hasn't been inept. So playable at second base. Brewers the clear talking point, 9.53 in the home run model for Jackson Chourio. Looks pretty tremendous, 56-42. He's hit a dozen home runs in only 229 plate appearances, just finding the clear upside that's always been there. Major breakout underway for Jackson Chourio. Not that he wasn't already good, but we're taking another step forward this year. William Contreras, 47-34, premium piece. Not a bad option at catcher. Probably easily 300 too cheap at 47. 297, 362, 426, a 119 WRC plus, a 352 xWOBA, 9 home runs already on the board. It's a very good catcher option. Again, hitting second, anywhere in the top 4 or 5. He's got an alternative catcher in the projected lineup there with him. I was hoping we would have this lineup by now. Gary Sanchez against any given lefty, plenty of power upside. Gary has always been a real home run hitter. Very little else, but a very real home run hitter. He's got 8 this season in 158 plate appearances. He's also gotten on at a 361 clip over that stretch. Gary Sanchez has his abilities. He's not been this good in the past at getting on base or drawing walks with that kind of consistency. Right now, a 17% walk rate in the limited sample. We're pushing it. He had a 4% in limited action last year. More realistic, 9.6, 7.9% going back in years past. But again, always has had the ability. I don't know that he's ever had a barrel rate that wasn't in double digits, with some extreme examples in there. 15.4 and 44.6 just in 2023. Good home run totals for the amount of plate appearances he's had over the years. It's a guy who probably should have gotten a more fair shake, even just as a DH, if you're not going to use him at catcher, just for the full career. Getting a more square opportunity here in Milwaukee. But premium piece, 8.52 in the home run model. Fire away. FanDuel is included. 2,800, not a bad option. It's just you've got him. You've got potentially William Contreras. You've got Andrew Vaughn at first base for only 2,900. Andrew Vaughn checks in, lacking barrels this year. Big downturn, oddly, in barrels for him, but we've seen him go through little brief stretches where he's missing the barrel but finding success with the bat because he's just a good hitter. He has a good hit tool for a power hitter. Good at limiting strikeout, good at putting the ball in play. And that's been exaggerated to the extreme this year as well. 17.9% strikeout, already very good last year, down to 9.7 so far this year. It's only 144 plate appearances, but he's basically doubled his walk rate, and he comes in at 339, 424, 524, finding a ton of success. 410 weighted on base with a 356 xWOB under the surface, and we know that he can hit the ball harder. Might be a matter of just, changing swing. I haven't taken a full look at the swing. I will. But that's a very good player regardless. And at 7.55, he happens to be today's home run pick of the day. I think we'll get the power back eventually. I love the option either way. I expect him to put some points on the board in this spot against a vulnerable lefty like Andrew Abbott. So it does create a little bit of a positional challenge. Two catchers on the DraftKings slate obviously collide, but two catchers and a first baseman, you want to get to all three of those guys for power upside for home runs, does become a challenge positionally on FanDuel. Fortunately, everybody else in this lineup works pretty well. Churio's very desirable in the outfield. Bryce Terang at second base at 3,800. Not a bad purchase on FanDuel. 54 on DraftKings totally works. 8.8% barrel. He's been bouncing between 9% and high sevens, which is fine. It's maintaining the gains that he made last year and improving somewhat on them. 12 home runs, 13 stolen bases, getting on at a 360 clip, creating runs 24% better than average by WRC+. He's been one of the best, if not the best, second baseman in baseball for the better part of a full season now. Blake Perkins is an interesting mixer. He's had decent batted ball events from time to time, can find a little bit of power upside. 100 pretty bad plate appearances so far this year. Home run, 3 stolen bases on the board, lackluster slash line. Last year hit 3 homers, stole 7 bags and 171 chances. This was his biggest contribution. 6 home runs, 23 stolen bases and 434 chances that year. 4 home runs, 5 steals, and 168 back in 2023. So again, you're talking about just oddball contributions here and there. Cheap option, switch hitter if he happens to be in the lineup, loosely playable. Sal Frelick struggling through this year, but mighty cheap for a guy with the stolen base and run correlation upside that he can provide from time to time. Cooper Pratt, a lot of prospect pedigree, lack of success over 44 plate appearances outside of those 5 stolen bases. And Joey Ortiz just kind of bumpy down toward the bottom, mix and match piece at best. Brewers bats, Shane Drowan. Reds bats, Andrew Abbott. Drowan probably gets pretty popular on DraftKings. I think. I mean, this isn't, in my mind, a crazy high projection for him. If I come in at 30 FanDuel, 15 plus DraftKings, I think it would have been a little bit high. I think he's got realistic upside in that direction for sure. We've seen it. But I wasn't projecting him there. Unless other sites are dramatically undercutting where I've got him, I would expect a lot of weight right there. Less so on FanDuel, but certainly should draw popularity on FanDuel, more so than, say, Seth Lugo. Probably more so than McClanahan for more money. That's an interesting back and forth on that FanDuel slate. Should you find $400 to get from Drowan to McClanahan? With the potentially shorter innings, although you don't have much more guarantee of depth with Drowan. Bad conditions there. Probably save the $400 and see what it buys me at the very worst. That's an interesting FanDuel back and forth, though. But again, this one probably going to get awfully popular if he's remotely close to where I have him, around the industry. Didn't mean to move that link button. So Imai finding the dominance in his 2 most recent outings. 6 innings apiece. Mentioned him earlier in the show against Cleveland. Struck out 11. Gave up 3 earned runs on the way over the 6 innings. 6 hits, including a home run, but 11 strikeouts offset some of that. Got the win. Got the quality start. Monster day. Followed that up against Detroit. In Detroit, 6 innings. 2 hits. 10 strikeouts and a walk. No runs. Dominant start. Teed up against the Twins here. Find similar success. This team has some strikeout in this lineup. The numbers in the overall are limited by some very, very good options that drag the average to a nice 20.5%. But mixed in there, you've got guys you can punch out multiple times over, and some of them are their better upside bats. You also get a Twins team with no Byron Buxton again today. So plenty of upside at 7,300 for Imai to go out and have a successful day. 9,000 on FanDuel. Definitely in the conversation. No guarantees we're going back to that level of strikeout potential, but 28.7% for the season. Finding a 13.3% swinging strike rate. Guys come away talking about his nasty, nasty stuff, even though it measures out in the average and across all the pitches as not above average. Guys literally come out about talking about how the pitches move. So something in there works really, really well. It's obviously baffling hitters when they swing at it. 5.36 ERA, but a 3.70 xFIP, 3.88 SIERA does expose some of the inconsistency that we've seen throughout the year. He has had a little bit of an issue with hard hits and exit velo, a little bit of barrel on a launch angle that can lead to some home runs. So maybe around a 3% home run rate, a little bit lucky. There could be another point or so there, pushing him into problematic territory. The Twins do have power in the lineup. Guys like Cody Clemens, Josh Bell, Royce Lewis in the mid-sevens, Trevor Larnach, even though he's not hitting for much power this year. There is a little bit of upside there. The 4-run total's not nothing. But Imai, one of the upside pitchers of the day for sure, and that DraftKings price is a bargain. And one last time, I'll say it, putting him together with Drowan makes a lot of sense in throwing one dart at DraftKings today. Taj on the other side, no slouch. 3.98 ERA, 4.13 xFIP, 4.02 SIERA, pitching pretty well, or pitching well for him. 25.4% strikeout against, too many walks, 15.6 strikeout minus walk isn't where you would want it for an ace. But when we're talking about, a guy who wasn't exactly, fully proven upside pitcher at all and needs to fill like a 3 to 5 starter type role, that's not problematic. It's a nice pitcher. Entirely usable at 83, usable enough at 88, upside enough to a quality start. Several above average pitches, as you can see as well. The entire arsenal grades out above average. Showing good stuff, but giving up a little bit of premium contact, a little bit of power in the mix, 46.1% hard hit, 91.7 miles an hour of exit velo, most notably. Probably a little lucky to be down there at 3.35% home runs. That doesn't necessarily play well with Jordan Alvarez, with Christian Walker, Isaac Paredes to some degree, Jose Altuve to some degree, some of these guys down lineup. So Taj not exactly safe and a bigger investment than his opponent. Well, on DraftKings anyway. But both these starters very usable despite two usable offenses and reasonable enough implied totals, just given the nature of this slate. Looking at the Twins lineup, those lefties that I mentioned with the power upside, Trevor Larnach, Cody Clemens, both very interesting. Love Cody's multi-position eligibility on FanDuel. Love the second base outfield on DraftKings at 4,400. Their most expensive bat today, but 44 is still not that bad a price. He's got 13 home runs, a lot of premium contact. Was displaying more ability earlier in the season to get on base. We need to track that a little bit. 334 on base, but a 341 xWOBA suggests that we should see some improvement as time goes on, but to limited degrees. What we're really dealing with is a masher of baseballs, a true left-handed power hitter with only medium grade walks and ability to hit for average. So just looking for that one big batted ball event from the left side, entirely workable against Tatsuya Imai. Trevor Larnach getting on base quite a bit more. 376 on base is really supporting the upside this year. 357 weighted on base, but a 332 xWOB. Again, something to watch. And a lot of that hangs on the batted balls. We need to push that hard hit rate at least somewhere back toward those 45% that he used to put up. The barrels are not all that inconsistent with last year, but they're down hard from the 2 seasons prior to that. But limiting strikeout, finding a ton of walk, finding a lot of success, a 128 WRC plus, second among all these players to Ryan Kreidler over 112 plate appearances, who's sitting at a 139 with nice weighted on base numbers, 5 home runs on the board. It's a pretty successful 112 plate appearances from Ryan Kreidler down here. Reasonable option at short, across multiple positions for 2,600 on FanDuel, with some quality in between those guys. How's that for bouncing around? Josh Bell driving in a lot of runs this year, finding success just by being where he is in the lineup. 54 ribbies, only getting on base at a 299 clip, just a 161 ISO, not a ton of extra base hits, but some ability to drive the ball. Those are reasonable numbers for premium contact. The double-digit barrel rate is nice, something to focus on, and he's not particularly expensive. And just, again, time after time, coming up with guys on base. Trevor Larnach is a part of that, leading off at that clip. Not having Buxton impacts that, though, because Buxton's not there to be on base at his 390 or 400 or whatever clip that he's been getting on base at. So something to be aware of that does diminish Josh Bell's ability to help his friends if those friends aren't on base. So knock him down slightly, but could make gains in the power department to make up for it. Royce Lewis, 8 home runs, not much else to speak of. You're just looking for one good batted ball event. Victor Caratini, cheap source of good batted ball events there at 3,500 at the catcher spot. Another underappreciated catcher. I'd say that's about the right price. I won't call him underpriced, but underappreciated. He's never popular. 7 home runs this year in 239 plate appearances. A few good batted ball events. Upside for more. Low strikeout. High walk rate this year. In years past, it's been lower, more balls in play, but I'll trade one for the other. If he's getting on base more consistently, there's correlated scoring potential. Nice 345 xWOB under his 315 actual. Just mentioned Creedler and all the success that he's found. That's offsetting some struggles for both Tristan Gray and Luke Keeschel down the bottom. Those guys playing more like mix and match pieces. Keeschel, the more desirable of those two, the more realistic talent. On the Astros side, I mentioned all the power on display for both Jordan Alvarez, who's been just utterly fantastic all season long, and Christian Walker, who has shown a lot of return to form throughout the season, but has slipped a little bit over the last month and a half now. We're up to a 22% strikeout rate. We talked about needing to push that back down below 20%. We talked about some slippage in the barrel rate. It's still good, but not great, not where it was. 19 home runs, that pace has slowed a little bit, down to 238, 309, 469. 303 xWOB is a big concern under that 336 actual. But if we're just throwing darts at home run power against Taj, who's, again, allowing a lot of contact on a regular fly ball trajectory, Christian Walker's absolutely in that mix just as much as, say, Isaac Paredes, certainly more than Jose Altuve, despite Altuve having an 8.71 in the leadoff role. Part of that is just opportunity-driven. Part of that's history-driven. He's hit 8 home runs this year. He hasn't been particularly good. He hasn't been completely bad, but the WRC plus 8 points below average certainly needs to improve, but still doing a lot of Jose Altuve things out there. Very playable at a cheap price at second base. Kind of works in the outfield, but more just another outfielder. The upside comes from second base, I think. Paredes gets to dunk the ball into the left field corner for home runs in this ballpark. He's hit 11 overall on the season. Gets on base at a reasonable clip to support ongoing upside otherwise. Cam Smith hits the ball very, very hard for a guy priced at just 2,600 against a pitcher who is allowing, again, the mix of this, everything going on right there. Just what Taj Bradley is doing right now and what Cam Smith is doing right now, despite good numbers otherwise here and bad numbers otherwise over here. That is a good collision of factors that favors Cam Smith in a big, big way for that 2,600. Just on his ability to put good bat on ball. He's delivered 11 home runs. Pretty poor slash line overall, just a 91 WRC plus, but you can see a lot of the quality in that xWOB, but 341 under the 302 actual. Taylor Trammell, we talked about just yesterday, all the success he's found over 105 plate appearances. Finding a good barrel rate, needs to push the consistency in hard hits, needs to cut the strikeouts dramatically, and or push walk dramatically, but is really and push walk. But 337 on base, some success on batting average on balls in play. Multi-category skill set, was pushing the boundaries of being, landing in quad A player territory, but getting a little bit of opportunity here and finding some success. That's an interesting fantasy player. Jainer Diaz at 3,200. That's another cheap catcher. Diaz, if nothing else, is putting the ball in play like he always has. Very low strikeout, low walk rate, a lot of consistent just balls in play. So far this year, hasn't found the premium contact. Years past, solid barrel rates, not spectacular, but solid, and very strong hard hit rates, given all the availability of contact, found a lot of success through those seasons. Struggled his way through last year, was out of action a little bit, 400 and change plate appearances, I think in the end, still hit 20 home runs. At 567, actually, more than I thought. That's a lot still for a catcher. Years past was 600 plus. Yeah, 619. Hit 16 home runs, but slash 299, 325, 441. Had a 117 WRC plus in 2024. And then 23 home runs in just 377 chances in 2023. Demonstrating just all of the quality for hitting for average, getting on base, hitting for power that Jainer Diaz has. So I'm writing off 146 plate appearances of struggling and being hurt so far this year, and whatever struggles we perceived last year while he was still a decent power bat. That is a good catcher play. Joey Luperfido, mix and match piece. That is more of a quad A player. And Reynel Delgado at the dead mid price, kind of looking like a mix and match guy, but 31 pretty successful plate appearances so far. Can easily get there against Taj Bradley if you're going Astros. Kind of feeling like, I guess we got to go with the projected mid-price Taj by a nose over Imai, who does slip a little bit on projection, but shares ceiling, I think. A little bit of those, the recent couple starts not fully accounted for. You don't want to overcredit it, like I was saying at the beginning of the show. But we'll go Taj, Imai, Astros, Twins. I'd rather have the Astros against Taj than the Twins against Imai, I think. Deeper lineup, better, peaks higher, and goes longer. If Buxton was here, it would be a closer conversation. Marlins looking very desirable at Coors Field. They're going to be extremely popular, though, particularly where they're still cheap on FanDuel, although they were coming up at fair value on DraftKings as well. And some particularly cheap bats if this is how they get configured. Doesn't look like it's in yet. Nope. So lefty Kyle Freeland on the mound. You see Kyle Stowers slip slightly down the lineup. You see Jacob Marcy offset down the projected lineup after getting some shots in the leadoff role where he doesn't really belong. That's more traditional baseball think. 351 plate appearances for Marcy, slashing 189, 307, 287. Not exactly earning extra plate appearances up top. He's just fast. 18 stolen bases despite the bad on-base percentage. But if they want to play that game, Esteury Ruiz is a little bit more proven as a major league player, currently getting on at 354. That's only over 97 plate appearances, but you could have that same conversation. He's stolen 16 bases already. You could have that conversation about using him in that role if you just want to think about it through a traditional lens. And at least you had a season of moderate success over which he stole a ridiculous 67 bases in 497 chances, despite getting on at only a 309 clip. So if you're going to do it, let's do it. Use that guy in that role. Maybe they will. This isn't the confirmed lineup, and he is right-handed. I wouldn't mind horribly if he was in the 3 slot. That's giving him a little credit for the minor blip of power output that we saw with those 4 home runs. He's more, an 8 to 12 home run guy in a full season. Speed is his game. Hitting for average should be his game. I had to flag that. That is a weirdly high projection. Something funky in the back end for Esteury Ruiz. I'm glad I noticed that. I'm going to just put myself a note right here. I'm going to fix that after the show. Something funky popped up in Esteury's back end that's creating that blip. It's probably going haywire with, I bet you that stolen base total is already exceeding, or the home runs even are probably already exceeding what he's projected for the season on the back end, because he wasn't expected to get even, this many plate appearances. So that's probably breaking the projection all of a sudden. I'll get that fixed for you in the next projections update. Ignore that. That is definitely, even hitting third, a lower mark than what he's putting up. Not that he's not capable of having that day, but that's not what we're projecting him for. I didn't catch that earlier in the day. Your key bats in this lineup, Otto, having a tremendous year at any spot in the lineup. He's going to be super popular. 55, 4,000, their most expensive bat, but easy enough to reach with everybody else being fairly cheap. 7 home runs, 16 steals, 366 on base. Big part of their success creating runs in the month of June. Xavier Edwards at 53-36, getting on at a 382 clip is elite. Only 13 stolen bases, kind of odd, but scoring a ton of runs, hitting for average, doing a lot for fantasy purposes. Really interesting player at his position at price. Not a bad option at Coors Field. Ruiz is tremendously playable in basically any spot in the lineup, given what the skill set looks like. Blazingly fast. But the guy next to him in that lineup, Heriberto Hernandez, monster power upside. 7.70 in the home run model. He's got 8 on the season in just 189 chances, 8.8% barrel, 48% hard hits. That's coming off of a limited sample last year, 10.9% barrel, 45.4% hard hit, of which you only found mixed success. You can definitely expect a lot of zeros from Hernandez, but you can also expect big days and big fantasy point creation events. Kyle Stowers wouldn't struggle against this lefty Coors Field. Everything still works in his favor. My hope would be that maybe get him slightly lower owned than he ought to be for it being Coors Field. Certainly fair price on either side. Louis Jimenez benefits from Coors Field, not much else going on there. Jacob Marcy talked about the speed upside. That's really all you get. 48 feels like a big price tag. So does 34 for a guy putting up the numbers outside of the stolen bases. I don't really get why he's there outside of just this game as at Coors, and he was leading off earlier in the week. Javier Sanoa, mix and match infielder at the absolute best. Joe Mack, interesting at catcher for only 3,800. Again, Coors Field benefits all. He's already hit 5 home runs with a solid barrel rate and 145 plate appearances. Wouldn't expect ongoing consistency. You can already see that in the weighted on base number, the 96 WRC plus. But if we're just hunting for one good batted ball event, that price totally works at Coors. On the Rockies side, just under a 5-run total for them, but they're going up against one of the best pitchers of the day in Max Meyer. 8,800 near the top of the DraftKings board, 92 entirely workable on FanDuel. Plenty of strikeouts as we've seen throughout the year available in the Rocks lineup. He's finding a 26.7% strikeout. My concern grows around the walk rate. 9% is a little bit high, but this Rockies lineup is only walking at a 7.5% clip. So there's kind of an offset for it. He can punch his way out of trouble, 12.6% swinging strike rate. 2.60 ERA, but a 3.74 xFIP, 3.70 SIERA continue to be the real numbers when we talk about Max Meyer. He is a little bit vulnerable to the fly ball, to the premium contact, but not alarmingly over the line in any of those categories. An entirely believable 2% home run rate, maybe a little bit light, but not, nothing crazy questionable there. I think Max gets through this one with a decent performance. 8,800 in play, 9,200 in play. Ceiling maybe a little bit limited by some runs against. Maybe it carves up your ability to get to the quality start on FanDuel a little bit with 4 runs staring you in the face. Those are concerns for sure, especially on FanDuel, given the quality start and Skeens and Wheeler in play. But he's easily one of the stronger options despite the cores of it. That said, going to Rockies bats against all that makes some sense, particularly on DK, where Max is probably going to have to be a little bit popular. I think Rockies bats come up a little bit contrarian against enough of a chunk of the field to put them, in interesting territory. Jake McCarthy at 45-35, solid piece. Hitting for average, getting on base this season, continuing to defy his ex-Woba, just beating the ball to first base. The ballpark certainly helps with that. He's very playable, but he's not much more than just another outfielder. He's priced a little bit high for who he is, but again, ballpark certainly helps. Mickey Moniak, upside for sure. 13 home runs on the board, a 10.52 in the home run model today. Major source of premium contact and power. The next guy in the lineup is their best player for premium contact, for power, for basically everything. 26 home runs on the board. Hunter Goodman at 17.3% barrel. Utter priority if you're going anywhere near this team. Honestly, if you're going to this game and not taking Hunter Goodman in a way, it's a mistake. But very, very expensive compared to every other DraftKings catcher we've talked about through the show who has been too cheap. There's a gulf between him and the Ivan Herreras of the world. And good as he is, Coors Field as it is, he's not that much better than all those guys. He's not that much better than the guys catching in the Royals game with all that conditional upswing there. So that's a wild price. 39 on FanDuel, same deal. But again, the guy's got 26 home runs. He's been outrageously good this season. TJ Rumfield and Troy Johnston, kind of interchangeable lefties, 4,800, 4,900 first base outfield on DraftKings. Some back and forth at first base with Johnston also carrying outfield on FanDuel. Fair play either direction. Both guys competent, hitting for average. More home run power, more home run upside on Rumfield's side, but it's kind of oddball, as I talked about, a dozen home runs, but only a 6% barrel, 30.8% hard hit. Johnston just more honest about his 3 home runs on similarly low contact. Willie Castro, solid mixer in the middle at second base, totally works. Third base, just fine as well. 48 is up there for Castro's player profile. 35, same story on FanDuel. Hits for average, gets on base, more correlated scorer than anything, but Coors Field day. Kyle Karros hitting for decent contact numbers. 5 home runs on the board, a solid 354 on base. I'm interested. 336 XWOBA supporting the 334 actual. Only 3,200 on either site. Cheaper on DK at third base than he is on FanDuel. That's a piece. That's a kid that you can get to offset some ownership, and particularly on DK, the ability to offset price with him as well kind of works. That's going to make me actually look at some of these averages. But you're going to go there, and look, we definitely want those two coming along for the ride. And then I'm just looking, is it better connective tissue between or including McCarthy? I can take or leave Rumfield. at the 48. I could take or leave Willie at 48, but we'll probably end up taking him for the second base eligibility. I think I kind of like it working downward here. Getting Tyler Freeman in the mix at 4,300. He's slashing 273, 355, 364. Just gives you another on-base option potentially that could be on ahead of Karros if he finds some of this premium contact and doubles, drives in a run, then he's on second base, wrapping back around to the top. I don't love leaving the two gaps in between my wraparound guy and my next man up in Mickey Moniak, but that's where the power is anyway. McCarthy just correlated score. Tovar does have power, but he's so inconsistent. I'm not really worried about him clearing the bases. And then I have one more spot, so I could go McCarthy there. If I did that, I buy that connectivity going that way, but it's 46.40 a piece, 23,200 total. If you go to Willie, you get second base filled out. It's obviously more money, but you get more connectivity through the middle there and into Karros, and you're filling second rather than another outfield spot where you could probably buy a bigger bat from another team. So that makes it 47 apiece, 23.5 total. It's borderline for who you're getting there, but at least it's under 5,000 in Coors Field in this situation. Attacking the Max Meyer ownership, there are arguments to be made for that at that price, and there's a lot of discount on the mound today. So I think it's doable there. On FanDuel, it's not really the same conversation. For one, the prices aren't nearly as low. That 3,200 is very different than that 3,200. And you're only getting four pieces of it, so you're struggling to make the full combination. Different story over there. Marlins bats, Max Meyer, Rockies bats. I don't think there's any reason to play Kyle Freeland. Gerald Mays 1489 says, I got the Florida teams, Rays, Marlins as top stacks today. I got the Marlins number one, and I got the Rays in there somewhere. Rays fourth by value, fifth on DraftKings, eighth by value on DK. They do slip a little bit. They're third by Vegas total, seventh by home runs. We talked about liking that lineup quite a bit if you were here earlier. But my issue with the Rays continues to be that so much of their quality drives through those three dudes, and then it really trails off, and you're just kind of throwing darts at everybody through there. That's a collective to drive that point home in mixed samples, but only Victor Mesa at 71 plate appearances is truly a very light sample. That's a six-man WRC plus of 78, which is 22 points below average, right? 100 WRC plus is league average. Weighted runs created. So all six of those guys are below average run creators. All six of those guys are getting on at a collective 309 clip. They have a collective 285 weighted on base with a 290 xWOBA. So those guys are who they are. And that is six pretty poor baseball players. That is a three-man lineup right now. Those three guys look great. They're very expensive. Any one or two of these guys can and is likely to contribute to a big day where they go over six runs. You're going to have success there. It's just throwing darts at which one of those guys happens to do it for the cheap price. There's no predictability between which one of those guys it's really going to be. That's where you run into some problems with short lineups like that. But it's not like they look bad because they're carried by those top-end guys who are so good. So if you couldn't tell, Wayne, who said that? Gerald Mays. If you couldn't tell, that's me agreeing with you in just way too many words. I do like the Rays, but top heavy. This is where we were. Yeah, Giants, Diamondbacks. Yep, we just talked through course. So last two games up. Giants, D-backs, 504 implied on the D-back side, mid-fours implied for the Giants. Honestly, the Giants going up against Zach Gallen seems like the better spot. The D-backs are a good lineup among the top four, as we've talked about quite a bit. I like all four of those options. We just saw them exploit the walk, do their thing with the walks just yesterday to a similar pitcher in Landon Roop. They could come back out and do that exact same thing here to Trevor McDonald, frustrate him entirely, put a few base hits through the infield, score a few runs, chase him out early. But this lineup also trails off a little bit. It trails off in a different way to the Rays lineup where like all those guys are just pretty bad and pretty much always have been and don't offer all that much. Lourdes Gurriel recently is, a couple years ago, pretty good bat. Max Kepler recently is a couple years ago, pretty good bat. Nolan Arenado, once upon a time, Hall of Fame track. I don't know that we get there, but a great career, undeniably. Mostly shot over the last 2 years, but still, there's depth there. Pavin Smith, Tommy Troy, a little bit less so. But this is a deeper, but still short kind of a lineup. But McDonald has that ability to keep the ball down, just like what we talked about with Roop yesterday. And again, it didn't work out because it came around those 6 walks, and he was out of the game after 2 2/3 or whatever. But he had the similar impact in just checking everybody down, even Ketel Marte, only halfway to the magic number. Nobody else even above 5. McDonald's limited hitters to a 2.7 degree average launch. It's difficult to hit a home run if you're not getting the ball in the air. He's also been decent at inducing medium contact, keeping barrels to just 4.5% on all that lack of launch angle, 1.75% home runs allowed. He's not a premium strikeout pitcher, just a 9.4% swinging, 19.7% strikeout, not a great strikeout minus walk rate, given a few too many walks along the way, 4.94 ERA, but a much more believable and cleaner 4.01 xFIP, 3.97 SIERA. I think we're talking about a low strikeout, think Andre Palante type. Fairly low strikeout, keep the ball on the ground, some good games where he eats 7 innings and shows quality, finds his way to a win, especially in decent conditions like these, so on and so forth, but not always successful, nowhere near reliable, not a premium DFS guy, except when you can maybe sneak him through as a $6,700 SP2 on a slate that's really light on good options. So I think McDonald's at worst on the board. On the other side, I want Gallen less. Gallen's striking out 13.3% of hitters, 8.3% swinging strike rate, allowing a 10.1% barrel, 43.6% hard hits, 90.5 miles an hour of exit velo, nearly a 4% hard hit home run rate, 86 rating by Stuff Plus. He's locating well. Give him that. 6.15 ERA, a 4.92 xFIP, 5.0 SIERA. So, all right, give him credit for being better than he's been under the surface, but you're still talking about a 5-run pitcher. It's not good. Zach Allen's been a target throughout this season. I don't think any of that changes facing the Giants here. Rafi Devers, 9.90 in the home run model. Believable upside given the contact. Coming around slowly but surely. 15 home runs on the board. Slash line looking a little bit more healthy. The ISO's up to 217. 109 WRC plus and climbing. We're rounding into Rafi Devers type form. It just took a while. 3,500, 3,000. Price is still way, way low for a matchup against the completely vulnerable Zach Gallen when his team comes in at a 4.5 run total. I don't really get why he hasn't gained at least a little ground in price, particularly on DraftKings. The continuing positional conflict with Bryce Eldridge on that team absolutely blows on the DK slate. You got to choose one. Eldridge is cheaper than Devers. He's been rolling since coming out, since his promotion, not since coming out. Poorly said. He's been rolling since his big debut. 171 plate appearances, 6 home runs on the board, a 368 on base, 370 weighted on base, or ex-Woba rather, under a 366 weighted on base. Absolutely killing the ball. Kid's just really good out of the gate. Take advantage. It just sucks that you can't have him and Devers. Luis Arias, competing for a batting title once again, 331 average, 366 on base. Killer is a correlated scorer, but that's all he does. We've seen guys like this, and their value for fantasy completely fluctuates on just happenstance at where the base hit falls, whether it falls, and what the guys behind them do. So very little actually in a guy like Luis Arias' control, but a usable piece in the infield. Young-Hoo Lee, reasonable in the outfield, 316, 348, 454, doing a lot of similar things. I'd probably rather have that skill set at second base and take my shots more around some power hitting outfielders. But Lee is by no means not usable in the outfield. He is by all means usable in the outfield to avoid the triple negative. Elliot Ramos, monster premium contact numbers. 5 home runs and 187 plate appearances that have just been kind of meh overall for the season. A 102 WRC plus, slightly above average. I'm just interested in that 14.1% barrel, the 49.2% hard hit. Those numbers are significant, and they're in line with previous seasons and previous stretches of significant power output from this hitter. So don't be surprised by a home run surge at some point from Elliot Ramos. 36 is a nice price. 29 is a nice price. Drew Gilbert struggling his way through 192 plate appearances, mix and match level. Jonah Cox gives you a little bit of speed, 3 stolen bases and 28 plate appearances so far. Drew Cavanaugh, mix and matchy kind of catcher option. Yes, Cubs, of course. Yes, Cubs points out for sure the Seinfeld quote that I should have thrown into the mix there. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Had Bryce Eldridge come out, we would fully support him, especially during Pride Month, which actually Pride Month just ended, I believe, but that's no reason to not support someone. So, yes, by all means, if Bryce Eldridge did come out and I didn't hear about it, we support him. And if he's planning on it sometime, we support that as well. Not that we know anything about Bryce Eldridge that anybody else doesn't. This has gone down a weird lane. Ketel Marte at 4,800, kind of interesting. 34 on the FanDuel board. Second base, that's an ideal way to fill second base on a lot of given slates. 17 home runs on the board. Bouncing along as far as some of the other numbers being lackluster compared to previous seasons where he's just been completely excellent. But a 376 xWOBA under that 348 actual says that he has been quite good, and there's more room to grow, that he's going to get back to some of those excellent numbers that we've seen. So absolutely going there if I'm considering Diamondbacks at all. Reasonable one-off, honestly, with his price still, 700 short easily on DraftKings at 4,800? That's a $5,500 second baseman. I mean, come on. 34 on FanDuel makes more sense. Araldo Perdomo, 33,000, also still very cheap. He's getting on base at a 360 clip, creating runs at a 105 WRC plus, 336 xWOBA with more to give. We saw more home run output from him last year. That could come back in a hurry, just given the consistency with which he puts bat on ball. There's just tons and tons of contact going on. It's just been lighter contact than it was last year. But he could flip that switch, find the barrel a little bit more, and 5 home runs could immediately be 12 home runs, could be 15 home runs a few weeks after that, and we're rocking and rolling our way to 20. I'm not completely ruling out a big second half from Araldo Perdomo. In reality, I think he finishes the year somewhere probably around 12 home runs and 25 stolen bases. But given the rest of the numbers and what I expect, that's perfectly fine. That's still a very good shortstop option, especially if his price continues to be low. Corbin Carroll, tons of success in the outfield, just a no-brainer in the heart of this lineup. Gabby Moreno, another really cheap catcher. I'm going to say it every single day about him and Herrera and the guys you're probably sick of hearing of at this point, but you have to harp on it. The guy hits the ball like crazy. He gets on base, even crazier, 368 on base, consistent with where he's been in years past. Draws a ton of walks, doesn't strike out. I don't get why he's so cheap where you need his position. 31 on FanDuel is a little bit higher, I think, than the 4,000 relative to the cap on DraftKings. It doesn't make sense. He can hit for power. He can get on base, correlated scoring into guys who can drive him in. Lourdes Gurriel can still hit. He hasn't been consistent at all this year. He's been downright bad for most of the year. But he's also been out of the lineup for most of the year. Once he gets his legs under him, I expect some consistency to arrive, at least from the frequent balls in play. Another guy, 17.4% strikeout, 5.4% walk, consistent with years past, right in line with where he's always been. So at some point, return to form, or at least the ability to drive in a guy who's on base all the time like Gabby Moreno. Max Kepler's been struggling his way back from the steroid suspension in his 13 plate appearances so far, but give him a minute. In his few batted ball events, he's actually hit the ball reasonably well, just not finding any good results for it yet, but again, 13 plate appearances. Arenado, I already talked about. The swing is mostly broken, but you can go there at 3,329. It's not like you're paying anything for it. Pavin Smith has demonstrated the ability to get on base, hit the occasional long ball at the major league level. He's just been bad over 73 plate appearances this year, but his price is way, way down. He's more talented than those prices. Hell, Tommy Troy's probably more talented than his prices. 3 home runs? Maybe not. Did we look at Tommy Troy the other day? I feel like we did, and I forgot, but Tommy. How's the peeping? Who knows that movie? Philip Seymour Hoffman said it. 581 plate appearances for Tommy last year. 15 homers, 24 stolen bases. Not a bad season. 289, 382, 451, a 114 WRC plus. Did have a 312 xWOBA under his 383 actual. That was as a 23-year-old, primarily 399 plate appearances at AA, and then 182 at AAA. So the xWOBA comes against only the AAA number. So it's 312 under a 369. Had a 390 actual WOBA, 12 of the home runs and 21 of the stolen bases in AA. But good numbers down on the farm at, age appropriate year. Tommy. How's the peeping? Adam James abroad says today seems like those with bankrolls day. As in you want to have a lot of lineups going into the contest today? I do, yeah. I kind of agree. Day like today, you want to have a lot of coverage on some of those wild card spots, especially on DK with all the wild card pitching that's in play without the two big spots. FanDuel, you get a little bit more like kind of hopefully straight line through those two options on the mound. But obviously if those go sideways, it's a big problem on the FanDuel slate. Clintwood says, leaving work. Hope I didn't miss much. Yeah, we're only coming up on the 2-hour mark in about 40 seconds from now, buddy. Last game coming up. Reg Kell says the D-backs lineup just rolled in. Let's take a quick look, see if anything's overly different. So ranking this one out, let's see. Everybody's there at the top of the lineup. Adrian Del Castillo joins the party. We still do get Gabby Moreno, though. Del Castillo, not a bad lefty. Finds the occasional piece of good contact. 2,800 at catcher, 24 on the FanDuel slate. 4 home runs and 157. Otherwise, the slash line is pretty lacking. The xWOBA is underwhelming under the pretty bad actual of 50 WRC+. But I am interested in the premium contact. Just the ability to put bat on ball. Too many strikeouts, not enough walks. Ultimately, probably not a great option, but a mixer at worst from the left side. And then everybody else pretty much the same. Who stepped out? Kepler stepped out. No Max Kepler. I'd rather have Max Kepler than Del Castillo if I'm just taking a lefty bat in that spot. But that's fine. So this that 5-run total and the quality at the top of the lineup. It is more, again, top of the Diamondbacks lineup, but I'll give it to the full team and go Diamondbacks only slightly over the Giants because I'd really, in truth, rather attack Zach Gallen with Giants bats, and they probably do come up under-owned. $11. Yeah, the Diamondbacks are 7th and 4th by value. We got to give it to the D-backs. 5th by Vegas total. So we'll give it to the D-backs at that 5-run total. A little bit of credit for their quality. But I think McDonald is easily the more usable of the two pitchers. Just riding on his ability to maybe book 6 innings and just ride the ground balls. Avoid the home run. Limit base hits. Limit run creation. He's got a path to success at 6,700. I like it a lot less at 7,000 on FanDuel, but it is a dart in your quiver at worst. So Diamondbacks, Giants, McDonald, don't like Zach Gallen at all. And we go to no game whatsoever to close things out. Play none of these guys. They all suck. Dodgers 6-2-6 implied against the Athletics 4-8-7. These guys, on the other hand, want to get too aggressively. Shohei Ohtani at last check at the beginning of the show, still listed as a pitcher on the FanDuel slate. DraftKings corrected that. $6,600 first base outfield. Absolutely stick of dynamite in this ballpark going up against JT Ginn. Monster potential. 19.33 in the home run model. I believe that's probably the correct-ish. I'll make sure it is coming up with the correct number. I think some of our other stuff in here is kind of skewed with going through as a pitcher on the FanDuel board, and I think that's injecting some upper end points into his DraftKings projection there. So I got to double check that. I would expect it to come down by 2.5 points, somewhere around there, but he's still going to look dominant like he always does. 18 home runs, a 412 on base, a 416 xWOB unders, 405 actual. Says he's been underperforming, jipping us by like 10 points. That's not cool. 16.4% barrel, 53.2% hard hit. Absolutely ridiculous. Andy Pajas at 53-35, 16 home runs. By the way, that is a big knock to this team on the FanDuel slate if he doesn't get into the lineup, but he still obviously does still drive run creation and upside for all of these guys who follow at significant home run marks of their own. So it doesn't take the Dodgers in any way off the board, but it is obviously a big gap in that lineup now. Pajas, premium talent, 16 homers, 271, 329, 479. I do think needs to slip down to like the 5 spot in the lineup. Let Mookie hit second again. Let Mookie hit leadoff and Ohtani hit second. Muncy hit second. There's a lot of options there. Andy Pajes is not the correct guy to have in that spot, but that is a good player. And with his price down slightly from the peak, very interesting for DFS. Freddie Freeman at 57.35 has been tremendous. 293, 382, 494. That average going back up north. 11.6% barrel, 13 home runs on the board, a 390 xWOBA. Dude just doesn't stop. Mookie Betts at 5,000 now at 3,200. Price is climbing back up. He's up to 11 homers. He's finding the barrel, not striking out, giving you consistent upside. 8.95 in the home run model. Dynamite way to fill shortstop. Max Muncy, tremendous home run power, the ability to draw the walk, the ability to get to first base any given slate. Teoscar Hernandez for only 4,500. Monster power upside. 7 home runs and 214 chances, carrying a 10.5% barrel rate. 45.1% hard hit. 5.8 was the disappointing number on Kyle Tucker, not Teoscar. I didn't want to accidentally assign him that one. That's a great piece at 4,500 in this lineup. It's going to be expensive no matter how you slice it, but if you went like there, let's say we went Teoscar, Tommy Edman at second, Dalton Rushing at catcher at 43, 66 on Ohtani, and then I kind of want to use Freddie and go to first base, but I'll take Mookie at the discount at 5. It's still going to, like I said, it's still going to be pricey, but that's 48.20, 24,100 for the 5-man. That's in workable territory. You're getting, a superstar, 2 all-stars, Tommy Edman, a very good player at a cheap price, and Dalton Rushing, a high-impact young catcher. 9 home runs and 175 chances for Rushing. Edman, over his 42 plate appearances, getting on base at a 452 clip so far, creating runs 88% better than average by WRC plus, and tons of success throughout his career. That's a good way to put the Dodgers together. You can obviously spend more and get different combinations through there, or not use Ohtani and spend maybe a little bit less on the overall. Plenty of available combinations through the Dodgers, but I think Teoscar is key, and the 2 bottom guys in the lineup, who are both incredibly usable, are key and probably going to get popular in full builds of Dodgers for that very reason. Your expensive path to the Dodgers is probably going to be a little bit lower owned, maybe worth exploring a little bit given how cheap pitching can get. Like if you're looking at that Drohan Imai combination on the mound, was it 73 and 7,000? Then maybe we're talking about a more expensive, just top end, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 type Dodgers. That's 5,400 a piece, 27 total. Yeah, that doesn't leave you enough, does it? You could get to really, really cheap bats with that, I think, and fill out a full stack. Because 14.3 on the mound, 27 on the bats. So you'd have in the 2,000s to spend on each of 3 bats. Doable, but not ideal to go expensive. But that would be your lowest owned probably path to the highest end quality with the Dodgers. You're just obviously taking a lot of chances to get there. But everybody through this lineup, even scuffling Kyle Tucker in this pathetic form that we find him, very, very usable. Price way down at 51.32, 239, 335, 379. Performance way down, but noteworthy that he is still 2 points above average by WRC plus, even with the struggles. xWOBA 326, slightly above the pedestrian 320 actual league average WOBA that he's put up so far. Drawing a lot of walks, strikeout not problematic, just up for him, walks down for him slightly. He hasn't been right all season, but I'm betting on the next 340 plate appearances to be better than the first 340. On the A's side, you're drawing tons and tons of power, whether it's Charlie Barnes or anybody else, honestly. Do we have that confirmed yet? This was unconfirmed at the beginning of the show when I checked. Per MLB.com, it is still TBD. I believe it to be Charlie Barnes, who worked 1 inning in relief on the 16th, 1 inning in relief on the 15th. Oh, no, sorry, that was in May. I forgot it was AAA, which I also have here. 5 2/3 on the 25th in AAA, 4 2/3 on the 19th, 4 innings on the 12th as he got stretched out. Pitched to a 3.35 ERA, 54 strikeouts in 53 2/3 over 10 starts down on the farm. Some of that at the beginning of the year, some of it after those couple appearances in May. I think we would look at it as a 5-inning cap if he gets to that. And it's just not good conditions here. 4,000, even though that plays uniquely price-wise and gives you that step stool ability where he doesn't necessarily have to be good, even against a light pitching slate, is really dicey not knowing what it looks like. And this A's team is just too good. They're at nearly a 5-run total. This ballpark is super favorable for offense. Shea Langoliers, you could also argue for a little bit more power. We're just seeing a small sample impact from Charlie Barnes here. But Shea Langoliers is a complete hitter this year, blasting home runs. He's got 19 on the season. Nick Kurtz, also a complete hitter, gets on base at a ludicrous 421 clip on all these walks, 19.5% walk rate to offset those 30% strikeouts, 19 home runs for him. Utterly tremendous option. Colby Thomas, cheap in the 3 spot at 3,000, 2,400 on FanDuel. 4 home runs in 85 plate appearances, several pieces of significant contact, was doing the same thing in a small sample last year. A lot of strikeout, not enough walk in his game, not enough on base in his game to truly support ongoing upside, but any given slate potential for a long ball against a lefty for sure. Jonah Heim, mix and match type catcher with the ability to drive the ball, 7 home runs in just 145 chances at the plate this year. Very cheap at the behind the dish on DraftKings. Joshua Kuroda Grauer climbing the lineup at the dead mid price, hitting 5th today. Dead mid on both sides. 7 successful plate appearances so far. When we looked at him yesterday, he looked like a mix and match type talent. Lawrence Butler at 33-24, nice and cheap. 5 home runs, 6 stolen bases from a 20-20 type talent. You take what you get from him. Henry Bolte with the ability to drive the ball on display so far. 2 home runs, decent 46.9% hard hit rate, solid slash line, 370 on base. That's been a really interesting player. He's got speed enough to continue defying X-Woba as well. Jeff McNeil, more of a slap hitter, mix and match type guy. Same thing with Alika Williams at the bottom of the lineup. Not the best possible version of the A's lineup. I will say that works a little bit to Charlie Barnes' credit, but again, don't really know what it looks like. Yeah, Dansby's been killing it, Moose. TJ Moose Manzada pointing out, I believe it was double Dansby twice in a row, right? Double Dansby. 2 home runs yesterday, 2 home runs today. 9 home runs, 29 RBIs in 13 days. Hey, Dansby's always been good. Who tells you every time we talk about the Cubbies, you can't ignore Dansby Swanson, the bottom of the lineup. It's one of our guys around here. Love to see the success. I hope he continues it at some kind of reasonable pace going forward. Super talented player, excellent defender. Cubs saying Teoscar was basically unowned on FanDuel last night. I guess 13% is an unowned on a big slate. He had 3 today. He had a 3rd one. Holy hell. He had 2 before the show. Have a day, Dansby. Damn. Yeah, 5 home runs. Yesterday was a night game, too. That's 5 home runs within 24 hours. Crazy. So that's our slate basically up and down, gang. This one, I think, pretty clearly goes Dodgers, A's. JT Ginn, if you want to throw the dart, 8,000 on DraftKings, 87 on FanDuel. Again, has been pitching well, but pitching over his head. 3.25 ERA, but a 4.17 xFIP. 4.32 Sierra, just a 21% strikeout rate. We've seen him pitch better in terms of strikeouts. Does have an 11.4% swinging strike rate to support a little of the idea that he could find some Ks. It's just this team of all-stars is not a great target to go find sudden spikes of strikeout upside. They've had downside days against medium-strength pitching throughout the season, though. They've been a little underwhelming in spots. No guarantees for JT Ginn, but he's not as off the board as he might look by that projection against that price or by the name brand against the Dodgers. He's been good at limiting power, inducing weak and medium contact. That's having no real visible impact, honestly, on the Dodgers' home run projections, but it is going on a little bit. A lot of luck going on for JT Ginn, a lot of overperformance. I don't think he's as bad as we've seen in spots in years past. I don't think he's as good as we've seen at the beginning of this year overall. just an average guy, and we don't usually use average guys against a team as good as the Dodgers. But on a short slate, he's a mixer. And that's how we'll end things here. Yeah, Moose, that exactly. This Dodgers lineup is like, why would you? Right? Even if your argument is like, low ownership or leverage against highly owned, like you're peeing into the wind at a certain point. Like it's just so much more likely to come back and bite you. And there's so many other options of similar, low to medium quality at cheaper prices in better spots that it just becomes, why would you? So yeah, Moose, you're exactly right. No issues. Wheeler Skiing's top of your board on FanDuel, easily offset from everybody else. And then we get really interesting through these options. I continue to think that one's really, really compelling. Probably going to be popular on this slate. Both these guys get popular despite bad pitching situations in KC and in Colorado. Taj Bradley probably gets popular, maybe a little bit more so than you ought to be comfortable with against a good, hard-hitting Astros lineup that seems teed up to get to him. I don't know. Seth Lugo on the other side of that Rays game with all the quality for offense showing in that ballpark today is a challenging ask. 7,300 on Imai is very, very interesting over here. You can see the FanDuel price quite a bit higher. I'm interested here. I'm super interested over there. My hope would be that maybe he gets buried a little bit as people focus more on those options. Again, that plus that equals bats. Abbott, tough ask. McGreevy, tough ask. JT Ginn against the Dodgers. McDonald stands out a little bit as your bargain bin guy from down there at 67, a little bit cheaper than Droen in a similarly, appealing matchup to a degree, and just that ability to keep the ball down. Maybe he succeeds on that, finds some efficiency, picks up some double plays to get out of situations, and limits run creation. You could see it a little bit. I think more so than a limited Ronaldo, certainly than a Gallen, Freeland, or Charlie Barnes. Stacks board last time. Home run picks contest, didn't mention it much. That's still going on. I got to update the stacks board. I owe you guys 2 or 3 days of scoring in there. First to 5 correct picks wins. I don't think anybody's gotten it yet, but if you've gotten there, you'll get your prize. Don't worry. And if anybody gets there in the interim till I announce the update, you'll also get your prize. You win a free month of Rotoscouts.com content. You can use it now. You can use it once football season starts, whenever you want. Free to enter. Got to leave it as a comment after the video. Just leave one pick. Seems to be some confusion. You can use the same picks as one another. If somebody picks Nick Kurtz and you want to also use them, you can still use Kurtz that day. You just can't use the guy that I picked. So feel free to use the same picks as one another. Makes my life easier. You just can't use my Rotoscouts pick of the day. Only one pick per person per day, and it's got to come from the slate we discussed on the show. No fair picking games that already happened today. That is about it. Reg Kel calling out that the Marlins lineup looks a little bit different. What the hell? Let's pull that up real quick. Here's what we had. Let's see what it turns into. Okay. So Ruiz in the 2 spot. Liam Hicks into Heriberto. We keep Stowers. Who dropped out of there? It doesn't overwrite it anymore. I wasn't looking. I forget who was in the 2 spot initially. Oh, it's no X, no Xavier Edwards. That's who's missing. So Ruiz is an interesting option in the 2 spot. Again, that projection is going to come down. That's why that note is there. Something went haywire on the back end that I got to fix, and I'm glad we noticed it. But he's going to look good in the 2 spot. That's a guy who can put that on ball, finds the occasional long ball, steals bases, getting on base aggressively right now. So a reasonable option if you're going to the Marlins, and again, lifted by Coors Field. Liam Hicks, interesting option at 54 in the catcher role. A little expensive by comparison to a lot of the rest of the slate, except for, say, Hunter Goodman on the other side of this one. 13 home runs, but he's going to be popular there, and I think the popularity at that price kind of offsets his value against a lot of the other catchers we talked about. Eddie Berto we talked about. Javier Sanoa, not much of a bat. Leo Jimenez, not much of a bat. Navarreto, another cheap catcher, down lineup. And then Owen Casey's interesting at the bottom of the board. 15.6% barrel, 47.5% hard hit over 231 plate appearances, 10 home runs, just lacks consistency, but a 205 ISO. I'm interested in the extra base hits. I'm interested in the power and the ability to drive the ball, whether it's over the wall or into the gap in Coors Field. That's another upside piece. I don't really sweat lefty-lefty against Kyle Freeland at Coors Field. So fire away with Owen Casey at the bottom of the lineup. That's a gift in the bottom of the Marlins, and he probably goes under-owned at a cheap price, I'll add. Good call out there at the end of the show, Reg. Appreciate it. Moose, appreciate you, man. Great show and content. Love it. Love it. Appreciate you, bud. Glad you found us. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so more people out there can come find us. If you leave a comment on the show, that helps feed the algo as well. That's where these extra viewers and nice new folks in chat have been coming from lately. So I really appreciate everybody who's been coming out, everybody who's been finding us. Go to the website, rotoscouts.com, rotoscouts.com. We'll plug it like the Hot Wings guy again. Promo code is try me. All one word, capital T, capital M. It's on your screen, right? Just left. That's a free first week on a weekly plan. Open anytime right now to get behind the paywall and just check things out for a week. See how you like it. Every single main slate is guaranteed. Days like today, I typically do get to the bonus slate. Had the full afternoon projected by, I don't know, an hour and a half or so before that early start time at 12:35 today. So you get those in and around the edges. Every main slate guaranteed. When football's here, it's every single football game that happens, every main slate, every side slate, every one-off game. Basketball, every main slate. Hockey, every main slate. Full projections. Jump on board. Check it out. Monthly and quarterly plans available if you fall in love with the site. If you don't cancel that free weekly, it will become a paid weekly after 1 week. Renews at $6.93 for the next week. Cancel anytime in between. A lot of promo. DFS coach Doug, good seeing you, buddy. Appreciate you jumping in. Long time. Good stuff, man. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you picked up some stuff. Come on back. We're doing this a lot. Not quite every day. I try to be here every day. We make it most days, though. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you can find out when we go live. Let me jump out of here. Get projections updated. Coming up on 6 o'clock with a 6:40 start, I want to say. Got to get Estuary Ruiz's projection fixed here. Got to get the site updated with the confirmed lineup so you guys can use them. With that in mind, good luck out there tonight, gang. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do at Rotoscouts on Twitter. Premium Discord linked in the description of this video along with the links to the website. Check all that stuff out. And come on back tomorrow for more. Go win something. Good luck out there. See you tomorrow. Later.